Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to foot.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everybody? A pleasant good evening to you all. Welcome, dissidents, to the DueDissidence podcast. Keaton Weiss here. Russell's got to unmute that microphone. You look distracted by something. I don't know what it is. What's the matter?
Yeah. Did you load in that last-minute tinfoil pick?
Of course.
Oh, all right.
What are you worried about?
All right, you got it.
There's a nervous wreck over here.
I'm a nervous wreck. All right.
Nervous man over here.
All right. Hello.
What kind of operation you think we got going over here?
You never know. You got the fucking kids running around. When I talk to them in the morning, the kids, daddy this, daddy that.
The kids.
I'm like, throw them a stick or something. Have them chase it.
The kids do not like it when I'm on the phone with somebody. They get very jealous. I'm on the phone is when they want my focus on them. They'll be kind of chilling out, watching TV, playing with each other, toys, whatever. When I start talking to someone else is when they get needy, just like your cat used to, right? When you used to do this podcast, Mortimer used to look at you like, what's going on? Why aren't you talking to me? They get the same way when I'm on the phone with somebody. Yeah.
Well, and he would try to talk like a human. He thought that was the way to get my attention. He would make these, he would do his closest impersonation of what I sounded like.
Right.
He was trying to talk to me. It was like, maybe then he'll turn and look at me.
Right.
Yeah.
Bob K says, Keaton, thought you were getting a haircut. I'm working on it, man. Trying to find the time. I was working last night. I was just exploring the area because I don't know this area well. I just moved up to the capital region. So I was just doing some delivery driving last night. And I made a couple of deliveries to Russ's alma mater, actually. I was on the SUNY Albany campus quite a few times last night. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
A couple of deliveries there. I forget the names of the quads and the halls that I went to, but I'm sure you would know. Big campus, really big campus, which is actually great as a delivery driver because it's big enough where they actually bother on the GPS to direct you to the actual building because there are actually roads within the campus that lead to the building. Whereas when I used to work, my neck of the woods, Marist College is so small, it would be drop off Marist College. You pull in and then you got to call the kid and find where he is. You know what I mean? SUNY Albany is big enough where it directs me right to the place. So it actually worked out pretty well. It was quite pleasant. Although the tips suck because, college kids don't have much disposable income. So I'm not going to work that area anymore. I didn't like it. I like my area better.
You're gonna duck SUNY.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that zone. That zone is
off. That was what was weird with that campus is you have some campuses that are more sitting in the community. And right. Yeah, man, I mean, when you lived on that campus, you could literally go months without ever leaving that campus.
Oh yeah, because it's right off the highway there, whatever that name of that street is out there.
Yeah, you got to make an effort to get out of there. And if you got your meal card and you're going to classes and you're eating, I used to say it was like a social experiment where you take a bunch of kids from Long Island and drop them out in the sticks and see what happens.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the way college kind of felt to me in general, but certain campuses do create that effect more than others. Like a friend of mine went to St. Rose, which is also in Albany. That's in a really great area. There's like a really cool little main street right near
Yeah,
the
yeah.
campus. It's
Yeah,
more
well, that's
neighborhood.
more like that's in the neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly.
St.
It's in the
Rose.
neighborhood. Yeah, but no, the SUNY place is like right across
No,
from
it's
all
totally
the
cut
hotels,
off.
right near the highway.
Well, and
Yeah.
then you have that perimeter road acts like a moat.
Right.
You're
Right.
just
Exactly.
kind of sealed in there. Like it's
Exactly.
such a trek to get out
Right.
that unless you have a reason, and especially the winters are so brutal that you
Right.
just wind up not leaving that campus for months at a time.
Right. Indeed. Indeed. So, it was a learning experience. Probably won't be on that campus much anymore, but glad I got to see it. We have a super chat here to kick us off. Pat Donahue, thank you. Senior Dad donating, Keaton. Where do you get your politics from him? Apple didn't fall far from the tree, I bet. Yeah, no, not too far. Not too far. I guess we differ on a couple things, but I'm glad that he's a fan and grateful for his help, obviously. Speaking of help, you may notice near that subscribe button underneath the screen here, you should see a join button. We just got approved for YouTube memberships. And so if you guys would like to support the show and get a little star next to your name for the chat and enjoy some of the different perks that are part of the YouTube membership, we have 4 tiers. We have fan, coddler, stan, and simp. It's just a way to raise money to keep the lights on here at DueDissidence HQ. And so if you would like to join and support the show, there are the perks that are listed, and you'll get a little badge next to your name on the chat so people will know how great you are, that you support independent media. And so if you can do that, that would be wonderful. The perks there are not the same as the Patreon and the Substack because we're using Patreon and Substack to cover content that we would not really be allowed to cover on YouTube. And so there's no point in posting exclusive videos on YouTube because the whole point of the Patreon and the Substack is we're going to do stuff that we're really not supposed to do here. So we keep everybody happy. We keep everybody very happy. That's what we like. We want everybody very happy.
Right. We love the poorly educated.
Right. Exactly. We love the poorly educated. Thank you, Abiding. Appreciate the 99 cents.
Yeah, you'll appreciate that one.
Bennett Weiss sounds like a president of Yale. Yeah. Well, that he is not. But if you could sign up to become a member here on YouTube, like I said, the perks are listed there. So check it out. See if you like it. Here we go. Our first member. We got our first member.
Oh, boom. Look at that.
V. Olaf Stodier. Okay, excellent. Perfect. I don't know what tier you signed up for.
I hope you're not Swedish.
Why?
Well, because what if I don't like the Javalia? We're going to lose them as a member the same night
right.
we got
You're
them.
trying the Swedish coffee tonight. I would bet that seems more kind of Icelandic, I'm going to guess. Would be my guess. I don't know if I'm right about that, but that would be my guess. I don't know what tier you signed up for. Okay, so there are different tiers here. Look at that. Tusker joined, new member. Look at that, Tusker. Thank you so much. We appreciate you all. I see there's going to be a bit of a learning curve for us to figure out which tier you guys join at because there are different perks for different tiers. So we're going to have to learn the ropes a little bit. It won't take very long. We promise we'll get the hang of it soon. But thank you guys very much for joining up. Steve Adeptus.
Look at that.
Another member. We got a member drive. This is like a telethon. I heard that the Vanguard guys were on with the leftist mafia.
All right, someone get Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah. I heard the Vanguard guys were on with the leftist mafia right now. We considered just canceling our show and just watching their stream and making fun of it. That might be better than
audience.
That might be better than what we have.
You know what?
Programmed.
When we were doing the countdown, I had some morbid curiosity because they were.
Look at that. Icelandic.
Boom.
Look at that.
Look, you nailed it. Nailed it. You Viking motherfucker.
Courtney's here. Thank you, Courtney. Wow, look at this. We got a good little membership drive going here. Beautiful. Thank you guys so much. It's very moving.
In the words of Sally Field, you like us. You really like us.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally didn't get that.
I know it. I know that's the famous Oscar acceptance.
Oh,
speech.
you knew it.
Yeah. That's an easy one. That's an easy one. Everybody knows that one. Tom, $8.99 a month. Yeah, we have to price it like that because it's a little complicated, but just trust us, we have to do it that way.
That's how much we get charged for the thing with the guy.
We gotta kick up. We gotta kick up certain people. Got to get paid. We gotta keep certain people off our ass. So that's just kind of the way it goes.
That's the way it goes. We gotta, we can't completely show everything that we're doing. Can people choose their badge? Is that?
Think about the badge because I want to choose a red star as my loyalty badge. Well, I think you're loyal. I think you earn different color loyalty badges the more loyal you become. It's like a karate belt. You start out with the white belt and then you go orange. I think that's how it goes. No, I actually think that's how it goes. It changes color as time passes by.
The longer you...
Yeah, that's why it's called the loyalty badge. So the longer you stay on, it'll change color. So Tusker, you'll get there. Don't worry. You'll get to the color that you want. And by the way, one thing we are going to do, this is important, because we just got this approved today. We didn't expect this to be online for this show. We thought this was going to take a few days to get approved. We thought, or the full 24 hours. We just did it this afternoon. We thought we were going to be debuting this on Sunday, but it turns out they approved us in like a half an hour. We are going to create custom emojis for members, so you can put emojis. So if Tusker, you request a red star, we can make you a red star emoji so that you can have it.
For Tusker, anything.
For Tusker, anything. Exactly. Anything to keep you happy there. But yeah, we are going to make some
anything to dispel the rumor that our audience is 85% male. That rumor stops right here.
Right here. Well, Courtney's a member. So we got what, 2 female members so far? That ain't bad.
Yeah, we got Ellen.
That's true.
Oh, she's not.
I'm talking about YouTube members. We're just talking about for the YouTube demographics here. But anyway, thank you guys for signing up. That makes us feel very, very loved. All right, we have a lot to get to this evening, like a lot. There's a lot of small stories. Oh, look, Ellen did become a member. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Ellen. Beautiful. Excellent. We have a lot to get to. This is one of those t-shirt gun of content shows where lots of small segments, a few of the headline ones, but we do have a lot to get to. We are going to go in sort of a mixed order here between shorter ones and longer ones. But let's get to our first one here. This is a labor issue of sorts. I mean, there's no getting around the labor quality of it, but it's a little bit different from most labor strikes. And we are talking, of course, about the Hollywood writers' strike. And here's an interesting article in Rolling Stone: why striking Hollywood writers fear an AI future. The WGA strike is now underway, and a key reason negotiations fell apart is the film and TV industry's refusal to budge on the potential use of AI. So, are they not going to let me read the rest of that? Oh, well. I guess
we're not joining Rolling Stone.
No, we're not.
See, that's how they get you. That's how they get you.
There was one graphic in there that we could have showed, but that's okay. We don't need it. I mean, you pretty much get the point there. Yeah.
All right. So you got a few things going on here. One, the writers have been getting a worse and worse deal over the years. It used to be you got hired onto a show and they would work on the show for 9 to even 12 months sometimes. You remember, TV used to do 22 to 26 episodes would have been a season of a show normally. As they moved over to this streaming model, increasingly the way that they hire writers now is they hire them for 20 weeks to just write all the scripts for the season. And remember, they're usually not doing 24 episodes. They're doing like 8 to 10 episodes now, sometimes 13 if you're going by the old HBO model. And then goodbye. Most of the writers are let go once those scripts are in the can, and they keep on a skeleton crew for the back and forth you have to do with costume and sets and actors who don't like their lines. They'll keep on like a small core group, but most of the people in the writer's room are let go after that 20 weeks, which has made it almost impossible to make a living now for people who are entry level, who are not very established, who are not marquee names in the industry. So this is part of why they're striking. They're trying to put a stop to that. But also, yes, they are trying to extract a promise from Hollywood that they're not going to replace them with AI. And there are also questions of training AI with their copyrighted material. In other words, when you have to train your replacement. So they're trying to stop them from being able to use their scripts to train the AI to write scripts.
Yeah, and the studios were not willing to go there. What the studios promised them were annual meetings, keeping them informed on these changes, which is business talk for, we will replace you with machines if and when we feel it's profitable to do so.
Right, exactly. So, the writers are saying, this is something that's happening across the economy, that everyone's getting converted to gig work. They're turning Hollywood writers into gig workers. All right, fair enough. And usually, everybody knows when DueDissidence takes a stand on a labor issue, that can tilt it one way or the other. So we feel it's important to take a position on this. However, we have some demands of our own that we would like to lay out. Of course, we want to side with labor, but we have certain conditions. Okay, so in order for us to support this strike, the showrunners for The Witcher Blood Origin, She-Hulk, Rings of Power, The Mandalorian, but only season 3. Jon Favreau is okay. Star Wars episodes 7 through 9, because not having Luke, Han, and Leia in a scene together was screenwriting malpractice, and now we can never do that, ever. The writers of Willow, and Mindy Kaling. All of these people must never be allowed to write a teleplay, screenplay, novel. They're allowed to write basic technical writing, perhaps for a catalog, but nothing beyond that. If these demands are met, writers, you have our full support. But even with the massive, massive wave of support that will come with a DueDissidence endorsement, I don't know that you're going to be able to beat the AI. The AI is the next logical step in the democratization of media. The process of the internet and social media and YouTube, what has allowed shows like this to flourish. If you look at what this AI can potentially do, nobody's really thinking about this. It's going to finally completely eliminate the need for Hollywood. Once you've completely democratized the technology in an industry, why do you have industry towns? Why do you have concentrations of industry? Because of the bar for entry. Because you need a certain amount of capital, you need a certain amount of equipment. That bar to entry creates an opportunity to monopolize or centralize production, right? Once anybody can put in a prompt on a keyboard, or really, full Star Trek voice recognition, computer, give me Star Wars in the style of Wes Anderson, well, that's going to make it very difficult to explain why you need Hollywood. So that is not just a random example. Somebody actually did Wes Anderson rebooting Star Wars with AI. And you know what? It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's funnier than most of what comes out of SNL.
It's actually quite good. This is from the Curious Refuge channel. This video went kind of viral. It's up over 1 million views, so good for him. Go check out the rest of his stuff. We just wanted to give that channel a bit of a shout out because we are going to play this now. For those who are Star Wars fans and Wes Anderson fans, you will get a kick out of this.
Galaxy far, far away. Prepare for a reboot like never before. This summer, Wes Anderson brings you a side of the Star Wars universe you've never seen before. The Galactic Menagerie. Join this ragtag crew of unlikely heroes as they navigate the absurdity of the cosmos, challenge the Empire, and redefine what it means to be a rebel.
Our mission is simple. We steal the Emperor's artifact, save the galaxy, and maybe find ourselves along the way.
For this mission, we'll need lightsaber, blaster, thermal detonator, paper airplanes, spare parts, and R2-D2.
With a star-studded ensemble featuring the galaxy's most eccentric cast, the Galactic Menagerie is the most delightfully offbeat Star Wars adventure yet. Starring Timothée Chalamet, Scarlett Johansson, Edward Norton, Bill Murray, Jeff Goldblum.
It's crazy how they get the actors' faces almost exactly right, too. Like,
Yes,
they're almost exactly right. They're not quite right, but they're very
William
close.
Dafoe, Adrian Brody, and Owen Wilson.
Wow.
Coming to theaters this summer, may the Force be with you.
There you go. And it is May the 4th. It is Star Wars Day. So very happy Star Wars Day for all the geeks out there. Once again, shout out to Curious Refuge. That was well done. Go check out that channel. Link is in the description of this video. But look.
Okay,
so,
without AI, do you know what it would have cost to do that bit?
Oh, of course.
When was the last time you saw anything that inventive and elaborate on SNL? Right? Like, they just did this with AI. What are you going to need Hollywood for? And Jesse actually said in the chat, and this was a very good way to put it, you can't replace good writers. I agree with that. But you can replace bad ones. This is an element. So we're going to show this little clip of Adam Conover. Now, in the Rolling Stone thing that we got paywalled behind, Conover was heavily quoted, and he seems to have kind of put himself out in front. Now, I liked his show, Adam Ruins Everything. It was very good. The blind spot that I think a lot of the writers like Conover have naturally, being writers, they're biased. Most of you guys suck. You don't, Adam. You're good. Most of them suck. So the idea, he's trying to argue, you don't understand. There's so much that a writer does that can't be done by an AI. Not a bad one. Not a
well,
bad
this
one.
is where the turning point was, and it was really the advent of streaming, I think, because streaming made entertainment just so accessible to people. They can order a movie the way they would order a hamburger at a restaurant, right? They could pick exactly what they want, and it's with them in a minute, which is really not, I would argue, as a creative myself, it's really not a healthy way to consume art. Like, you're supposed to go to the artist to see what they have to say. And sometimes you love it, sometimes you don't, and that's fine. But you go to them to say, okay, what do you got? You go to the theater. Let's see what this person has to tell me. You don't order up exactly the product that you want into your living room. And once that started happening, the movies themselves started to change. They don't make those. Matt Damon talked about this very, very well on that chicken wing show while he was eating all the spicy wings. He said you used to have mid-budget movies made in like the early to mid-aughts and things like that. That's when you had all these really wonderful films made for like 40, 50 million dollars. Like all the Oscar films were in that budget. All the greatest movies were in that budget. And he says, now you can't get a movie like that anymore. Now it has to be totally low risk, meaning $1 or $2 million that they could take a chance, hope it wins an Oscar or two. Or it's got to cost $250 million, at which point it either makes $1 billion at the box office or it fails. Those are the two extremes you have. And so there's not a real market for great writing anymore. Like, there just isn't. And you started seeing that about 10 years ago, and that problem has only gotten worse and worse and worse, to the point where there's a handful of writers who are worth listening to, but most of them, it's just generic crap. I mean, you could count on two hands the number of movies that are just truly great movies that have come out in the last 5 or 6 years, I would argue. Like, there have not been 5 great movie releases per year in the last 5 or 6 years.
Sure. I mean, that's
one thing I just do want to add. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Some people have been asking, why don't you do the film club more? This is actually part of why. It's because the world of cinema is not exciting anymore. Like, it's just not an exciting world to follow anymore because there's very, very little good stuff coming out.
Well, that's true. And yeah, I mean, a lot of it is that, once they stop making money off DVDs, they turn to overseas markets. So if you're going to make movies that are going to appeal to China and other people who do not speak English, well, you're probably not going to do complex character-driven drama. You're going to do a lot of tentpole superhero sci-fi action movies. You're going to do a lot of John Wick. You're going to do a lot of that kind of thing that can translate to anybody. I mean, I had this experience, which I think is very rare for an American. I watched a movie in Hindi in a Bollywood movie theater when I was in India with no subtitles. I was more or less able to follow it. We all were. I watched it with the whole
if
group.
it's well done, you can.
If the beats are obvious enough, like there are certain things you might not get, but the overall plot, we were able to figure that out.
Well, yeah, no, film is a visual medium. You should be able to more or less follow it if it's a visually, centric film. Yeah, you should be able to more or less do it.
Right.
But let's hear Adam on CNN, because there is obviously a labor element to this. Whether the writers are any good or not, they certainly don't deserve to starve. There was a writer, it's mentioned in that Rolling Stone article, I don't recall. I was planning on reading it to you all, but they fucked us. There was a writer whose show won an Emmy Award for like best writing in a TV series or something. The writer who won the award had a negative bank balance at the time he won the Emmy Award because they can't keep up with rents. Because if you don't get good residuals, then it is just like gig work. You're basically an Uber driver at that point. If you're not making enough money on the residuals of the thing, then you just go from gig to gig to gig. That's why a lot of actors don't retire, because there is no retirement plan. There's no 401k. You're a contractor. That's the hustle. You just got to kind of keep going. Very few actors, even SAG, I think only 9% of SAG members actually qualify to get health insurance through SAG, because you have to earn a certain amount of money before before that kicks in. And 9 out of 10 actors in their own union don't even get health insurance out of the union. Right. So let's hear Adam talk about the disparity between the TV executives and the writers. He does this to CNN, calling out the CEO of their own parent company.
Industry that say, look, times are changing. We are not making as much money as we once did. This is not the golden era of television, although some of this would argue the shows are great. What do you say to them?
So I'd point out the fact that David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, which is, the parent company of the network I'm talking to you on right now, was paid $250 million last year, $250 million. That's about the same level as what 10,000 writers are asking him to pay all of us collectively, all right? So I would say if you're being paid $250 million, Ted Sarandos made about $50 million last year. These companies are making enormous amounts of money. Their profits are going up. It's ridiculous for them to plead poverty when the writers who are making their shows, some of them are not able to pay their rent or their mortgages. I literally know writers who have had to go on assistance because they have not been able to make their year. If you look at these companies, they're making more money than ever. It's the people who make the shows for them that are making less.
Adam Conover, thank you so much for coming on, because you ruined everything. You may have just ruined my career, but I don't mind. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, so talk about a CEO to worker pay gap. You're talking about a CEO there making literally 11,000 times what the average writer took in that year, in the past year.
Sure. It's a problem of capitalism, and these writers are correct that their plight does reflect what's happening across the economy, where corporations are figuring out how to extract maximum wealth. And that is why I'm saying, really, these guys are the weavers protesting textile mills, because in the end, these guys will cut your throat for $1. That's Hollywood. They know that.
Of course.
If they can move to a model, I was talking to you about this offline. Okay, so you used to have on the double-decker buses, which is that's tour guide hell. Like bad tour guides, that's where they spend eternity doing it on a double-decker bus. And, the tour guides, they had a union and everything. They said, well, they can't get rid of us because it's just not the same using a recording, and plus we do the ticketing and we help people on and off and all this shit. You know what they did? They fired everybody. They told the whole union, go get your fucking shine box. And they just hired people who work really cheap to do the stuff a human has to do.
Right.
Ticket collecting and making sure nobody gets smacked in the head standing up right when we're passing a lamppost. And that was it, man. So they're saying no, you can't replace us. Okay. There's Breaking Bad, and then there's most of what's made. Okay. Yes. ChatGPT can't make Breaking Bad. Can it make 90% of what's out there if you have a human crew that cleans it up after the first draft? Sure.
Right.
Most of what's out there sucks. And that's a big part of what the writers speaking on behalf of. I mean, whether they realize it privately or not, who knows? I suspect they're too deep in their own bubble to realize how bad most of this product is. But yeah, I mean, most of what's out there, especially in the cinema, I mean, that's a switch that a lot of people are talking about in regards to this. TV at this point is much better artistically. Somebody I saw in the chat mentioned Succession. I'm told I'm one of the few people who watches it. Yeah, no, I mean, of course, no. ChatGPT cannot write Succession. I think it'll be a long time before you could even think about an AI that could write something that sophisticated, if ever. But that's not most of what's out there. And I would remind people, the last time there was a TV strike, you know what that led to the rise of, right? Reality TV. That's when they started making hey, no scripts, right? And we've had reality TV ever since. What's to stop them now in this gap from experimenting with this? What, you think there are no hungry non-guild writers out there who will be willing to take a check to polish up a ChatGPT script? That plus, as I was saying before, if you are really going to be able to make things like that trailer at home, and if you can already go that far now, what's it going to be like in 5 years? So, I mean, is your editing software going to come with that now, where you're just going to be able to put in shots and how you want the scene, and you're going to
you can animate stuff, yeah.
If you democratize creation that way, it is going to destroy the need for Hollywood. You're going to have some 12-year-old out there who's going to make a better Avengers.
Right. All right, let's go to another one here. This is an actual, this one.
My coffee, man, my coffee.
This one, oh, okay. Well, I was going to do.
You don't take care of me, man.
Here, well, let's do this one real quick.
This is why the writers are on strike, because they get treated the way you're treating me.
Well,
That's why they're striking.
I know I was supposed to go to your coffee segment now, but this is a related segment. This is much shorter. So if you will allow management to steamroll you a bit here, we could do this one here. Since this is related. We have a perfect
it's like Animal Farm, once the pigs get in the big house.
This is a perfect segue. We can't spoil a good segue, right? Here's this story. 10-year-olds found working at McDonald's until 2 a.m. More than 300 minors, including 2 10-year-olds, were found working at McDonald's later and longer than the law permits, a Department of Labor investigation found.
And they found another 6 in back working on season 2 of Velma.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're writing all that. Exactly. The big picture, child labor is on the rise in the U.S. That's because no one wants to work anymore. No one wants to make my sandwiches anymore. What am I going to do? I got my nephew. He just turned 9 years old. Got to put him to work, right? No one else is going to do it. And the federal government announced a crackdown earlier this year after tracking a 69% increase in illegally employed kids since 2018. 70% increase in illegally employed kids since 2018. In the last fiscal year, 835 companies employed more than 3,800 children illegally, Labor Department investigators revealed. 3 separate franchises that oversee more than 60 McDonald's locations across Kentucky, Indiana, Maryland, and Ohio employed 305 children to work more than the legally permitted hours and perform tasks prohibited by law for young workers. So McDonald's, I don't know the way it is now, but when I was a kid, you got your work papers at 14, and McDonald's was like the only place that could hire you. They would hire as young as 14. Nobody else was as young as 14. McDonald's was the only.
Well, paper routes. I had a paper route when I was 12.
Paper routes. That's true. Yeah. But where I lived, there were no paper routes. So yeah, McDonald's, that was it. But yeah, 2 10-year-old kids found 10. That's not, oh, they're not doing what they're supposed to do as 14-year-old. You're not allowed to have a 10-year-old kid making burgers or cleaning the floor at McDonald's. And so,
in fact, you're supposed to be 16 minimum to use a fryer because it's considered hazardous equipment.
Right. And so there you have it. Another problem of capitalism. But yeah, child labor really significantly on the rise here, something that has not gotten the kind of press that it really should, because I feel like stories like these just expose systemic problems of capitalism itself, which is now you have a situation where, yes, you have these petulant business owners, or in these cases, franchise owners of these locations, complaining no one wants to work anymore. And rather than make adjustments on their end, they are willing to go as far as to stick a 10-year-old kid in the back of a McDonald's and say, here, you do it, knowing they're eventually going to get caught. Like, you can't really get away with that for that long. Sooner or later, the regional management shows up, right? Or the inspectors show up. Like, that cannot go on forever.
Well, not only that, this isn't just rogue individual franchise owners. The Washington Post got into this. This is 3 major corporate owners of various McDonald's franchises that were doing this. So this was a corporate policy of 3 different corporations that have multiple McDonald's locations. We're just going back to the grapes of wrath days. Like, that's inevitable. Everything that labor won, the 8-hour day, the sick leave, all those things are going away. The pension, all of that's going away. So naturally, you're going to come back to child labor. You're going to come back to child labor laws. You have, I can't remember which state it's in that the Republicans are actually pushing to repeal some of the child labor laws. Like, it's not just under the radar, it's over the radar.
I think it's Arkansas, actually.
Is it Arkansas?
If I remember correctly. I could be wrong. Tusker would know that. She lives in Arkansas. Are we right about that? Let us know in the chat.
Yeah, let us know in the chat. So, yeah, I mean, of course, you're going to get... look at how many gig workers don't work 8 hours, right? I mean, that's how they get around it. Like, all of these protections are being taken away. They're all being rolled back. So, of course, you come back to where we were before the Great Depression, before the New Deal. We're coming back to child labor, naturally.
Right. All right. Can we do our coffee segment? See, that wasn't so bad. I knew that was a quick one.
All right.
Okay. All right. Let's do it. All right. So, for those of you who are not familiar with what's going on here, Russell started a boycott Starbucks dissident sweepstakes, where what we're doing is we're taking recommendations from you, the audience, in the chat on alternative coffees to the Starbucks French roast, which was Russell's go-to coffee. Not that he got it at the Starbucks, but he would brew it at home. And the best replacement that Russell deems most worthy, whoever recommends the best replacement coffee will get a comped Substack subscription for life. So far, we've tried 2. We've tried the San Francisco Bay, and we've tried the Cafe Bustelo. So you want to tell us what you're going to be trying this evening?
Okay, so tonight we are trying Javalia, which is...
Pull it up a little more.
Read the back of the bag.
Beautiful.
Founded in Gävle, Sweden. Renowned for quality and craft. Okay, so we actually had a Swedish person comment on this when we mentioned it last week. Apparently, this is like their Maxwell House, kind of, from what he's describing. Like, it's their, like,
right,
whatever coffee. It's their, like, day-to-day coffee. It's like the very common one. I guess kind of like Lazzara in Italy is kind of their version of that.
Yeah.
Lavazza. So that's what this is from what he's describing in Sweden. So let's see how this is. Sorry, man, it's kind of shitty. Sorry, Sweden.
Don't like Javalia. Interesting. I haven't had Javalia in a long time.
Hey, I love your welfare state, but I don't like your coffee.
Yeah. I like your democratic socialism, but doesn't speak well for the coffee.
Yeah,
I haven't had Javalia in a long time.
It's got like that bitter, acidic kind of thing going on. I don't like that. I don't like that.
All right, so this is definitely not the winner. Whoever recommended Javalia Baron Saturday recommends Death Wish coffee. That's a very popular one. That's very expensive. That's like $20 for like a 10-ounce
all right,
thing, right?
So this is the thing with this, and I should make this modification. Death Wish coffee, I believe, is one of those coffees where they amp up the caffeine. I do not need.
Okay. That may be.
You know what I mean? Like if they're modifying the coffee to make it like an energy drink, which I think Death Wish is one of those, that I'm not going to drink that.
They must be doing something to it because it's very expensive. It's like $20 for like a 10-ounce bag or something like that.
I mean, it's got a cool bag. I'll give them that.
Hey, their employees better have a union if they're charging that much for the coffee.
I'm telling you.
Zach, thanks for the $4.99. I generated an incredible story. However, it lost points describing characters with offensive language like fat, ugly, and had no race gender swaps. 1 out of 10. Oh, yeah. I don't know which one you were using, which AI you were using. Russell was actually messing around with it the other day. I've not tried it yet.
I got to say, I was not impressed. We were trying, if any of you saw my article, Dawn of the Dems, there was an image where we took the 1978 George Romero and put RFK and Marianne Williamson's gear on the zombies. Actually, that was our friend Jacob who did that for us very quickly in like
Jacob
10
Rose,
minutes.
thank you.
I asked him to do it and he just threw it out. Thank you, Jake. At first I tried to do it. I was like, hey man, let me try these image generators. They sucked. Okay, for one thing, with ChatGPT, their image generator is called like Wall-E, I think. I guess for the movie or something. Dolly, that's what it is. They, to try to head off the, oh my God, you deep faked Henry Kissinger fucking Hillary, and it was fake. You can't use people's faces at all, not even your own. So that kills like 90% of what I would use it for.
Yeah, right.
Doing political satire, like 90% goes out the window.
Yeah, I mean, and look, there's probably like, in all honesty, as much as I'm pretty much a free speech absolutist, there's probably good reason for that, since it would be just extremely easy to manipulate information if you could do something like that.
I mean, I'm trying to find an AI that's more irresponsible, because wow, would that solve a lot of our parity problems?
Well, yeah, indeed, for sure.
So Sweden, this one was very expensive, actually. I would much rather a Swede had walked up behind me and hit me in the head with a brick and taken $14 out of my wallet.
Oh, wow. It's $14 for that. All right. Bennett Weiss, that's my dad. You said we disagree on some things, but I forget. Which are the things that you are wrong about? Ha. Well, I think I'm more of a closeted Trump supporter than you are. Like I secretly love Donald Trump. Both Russell and I do. Like we love Trump. Whereas you seem more committed in your leftism. Like, I secretly think, Trump is the best thing that ever happened to this country, obviously. Tom became a member. Okay, so the $8.99 was cool for you then, Tom. Thank you. I appreciate it. Like I said, we can't really talk about why we had to price it that way, but we did it for a reason. We gave you guys the best price we could. Let's just say that. We give you the best price we could.
We took care of you. We took care of
you. We were originally going to do $9.99, and we decided this afternoon, no, let's lower it. We could go another $1 lower. We can go. We have that much room. John Moore, thank you for signing up, my friend. Thank you guys for signing up and becoming members. That's really fun. We're going to do member exclusive posts, and yeah, we'll make it worth your while. Trust me, you're all going to be very happy. You're going to be very happy. Boeing 757 pilot, $10. Thank you. Hello, gentlemen. First time watching your live stream. Well, thank you, and thank you for the donation. A friend recommended your channel. So far, so good. All right. Well, I hope you didn't speak too soon. I hope you like it.
Exactly. What? Why you do it, George Costanza? Good night, everybody.
Yeah, good. All right, that's it. We got our memberships. We got some memberships in the can. All right, that's it. See you guys later. But no, thank you very much. And hit that subscribe button. By the way, folks, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Can we do a like check here? I don't know how many likes we are up to.
Like.
But let's like. We got to beat the leftist mafia tonight. We're up against the mafia. Franklin Warsham.
I got to say, man, because I was curious about the Tim Pool thing that they were covering. So while we were doing the countdown, I took a look. Talk about zombies, man. I mean, those are all zombie subscribers, because you got 524,000 subscribers. You got 620 live views.
Yeah. There's got to be something going on there. Something's going on there. We got to figure out what the hell is going on.
We have to, before we do anything else, we have to figure out what's going on.
What's going on? What the hell is going on? Franklin Worsham, I blame the voters. People are crap now. So are the movies. Well, yeah, there are definite parallels there. Absolutely. I think so, too. And thank you, Franklin, for that very generous $20 donation. And thanks to Jay Bigwater for becoming a member. Another member. Perfect. Beautiful. Well, thank you guys very much. We appreciate that. All righty. So let's move right along here. We have a real mixed bag tonight in terms of the nature of these stories. We have some lighter, funnier stories and some pretty heavy ones. This one definitely falls into the latter category here. It's from CNN. Because of Florida abortion laws, she carried her baby to term knowing he would die. So this is a woman named Deborah Dorbert. She carried a baby to term which had no kidneys, and it died as predicted shortly after birth. Now, in Florida, abortion is permitted after 15 weeks only if 2 doctors confirm in writing a fatal abnormality. In her case, as is the case quite often, she couldn't find 2 doctors to confirm a fatal abnormality, even one as obvious as no kidneys, because doctors are terrified of facing severe legal consequences if they misdiagnose one of these said abnormalities as fatal, because then they could be on the hook for an illegal termination.
Well, they know they're dealing with psychos out there who might sue, like just a private religious nut job who might go and start their own lawsuit against them.
Of course. Of course. She said also here her doctors told her it was too late to terminate in Florida, which bans nearly all abortions after 15 weeks. So then the only options were, if she couldn't get those letters, were to go out of state or get an abortion. Out of state or to carry the baby to full term. And Dorbert and her husband didn't have the money to travel. So just an absolute gut-wrenching story where this poor woman had to give birth to a baby, hold it in her arms, and have it die minutes later. Now, look, when you learn that a pregnancy is unviable, that is extremely traumatic in and of itself. To have to make the decision to terminate a pregnancy because the baby cannot make it. To have to give birth to it alive and hold it for a few minutes and watch it die in your arms, that is just unthinkable. Like, there are no words to describe the trauma that inflicts upon someone. And this is why I said when we were on with RBN on Monday, and Nick seemed to think I was right about this, I thought he was right about this, there is no guarantee that the Democrats will get blown out in 2024, because this is the kind of shit that just cannot happen. Like, this kind of shit cannot happen. People will not go for this. No matter what, they will not go for this. There are too many voters in too many key states that are just going to read a thing like this and say, well, we can't have that. No matter what, we just cannot have that. It's just too much for people. And this is in Ron DeSantis's Florida. As this story and stories like it have continued to circulate, there are conservative commentators and pundits who said, like, this could really be a major liability for him.
Of course.
Especially if Trump can angle to his left, as he signaled he might want to on this issue. And so we will see what happens. But like I said, these are the kinds of things that just scare the living shit out of people, that just, it shuts down the conversation beyond that because of just how extreme it is.
Yeah, just the nightmare of that, where she was at 24 weeks, and that's bad enough. They could have terminated the pregnancy before the Supreme Court decision. That's definitely what would have happened.
Of course.
Of course. It still would have been a tragic situation. But to put this poor woman and the whole family through this trauma of carrying this unviable child who is nonetheless alive, who is going to be born alive for 13 more weeks, and having the younger brother expecting to have a sibling and then having to tell him, that was described in the article. They talk to psychologists about how to handle it. They tell them later, which they did. And they just describe how the baby lived for a few hours, and she sang Bob Marley's Three Little Birds to the baby before it died. I mean, just the horror of that. The Republicans, I've said it as long as this come up, I don't think you need to really read the tea leaves to figure this out. They would much rather the Supreme Court not have done this. They loved having it as an issue. They don't like having it as a reality. But now they're stuck. What are they gonna do? Now they've built the whole party around these religious fanatics. And the thing about religious fanatics is they're uncompromising. That's what makes them religious fanatics. So you turn around and you fuck them. You can't say, oh, well, where are they gonna go? Meaning they can't vote Democrat. They just don't vote. That's what they used to do. Evangelicals generally did not get involved in politics until Reagan.
Yeah, I mean, they could go back to that. But on the other hand, there's always been an element of political conquest that Christians have related to as well. And so at this point, now that they have become a sort of like politically motivated group, somebody's going to have to just have a sit down with them and say, listen, we can't have this. Like there are other things we can do, or they can do in that sense, right? I don't want to out myself as a closeted Republican for real and say we, but no, like, look, they can say, look, there are things they can do to promote, Christian family values that do not involve this. Now, a lot of those, unfortunately, for the Republican Party, involve passing more socialist type, family-friendly economic policies, right? I mean, strengthening families is done through strengthening social safety nets and social systems, which they're not really interested in doing either. But look, I mean, there are things they can do to make what Bill Clinton famously said, abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. There's a reason why that was such a powerful political message for him, because that's what most people think abortion should be.
That was Hillary, actually.
Right, that's right. Actually, it was her. Yeah, but that is actually what most people think how it should be handled. Like, most people think, yes, it should be safe, it should be legal for whoever wants it, and we hope it happens as little as it has to. But this stuff is just so inhuman that, yeah, if they don't come up with an answer for this, then there's no guarantee they're going to win anywhere.
Yes, and DeSantis is in a tough spot because Trump can say whatever the hell he wants. He's not governing anything.
Right.
DeSantis actually has to govern.
Right.
And he's trying to win a primary that is even more dependent on those evangelicals than the general election. How does he roll back abortion laws now? How does he do that now if he actually wants to win that primary? So, yeah, and unfortunately, poor women like this have to suffer because of these political games.
Yep, indeed. Baron Saturday, thanks for the $5. You guys are naturals. Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Franklin, thanks for the $2.99 super sticker. Thank you, my friend. And Lloyd, red states are handmaid's tale. That's why MAGA lost midterms. Yeah, I mean, look, that's a huge part of it. Absolutely. And that was something that was an X factor going in. It's still an X factor going into 2024 until they come up with an answer. We said this the day after the midterms. Until the Republicans come up with an answer on this issue, they are at risk of losing these close statewide races, including, obviously, in a presidential year. States like Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, these states that could go either way, this is going to be a very, very powerful, motivating issue in those kinds of areas, and especially going into an election dominated more and more by normie voters, because this is part of how this happens, is that, and we've talked about this on the show quite a bit, how like in previous years, or I'm sorry, in the sort of past few years leading up to this moment, a lot of that radical energy, both on the left and the right, think George Floyd protests on the left, think January 6th on the right. Not that I'm comparing the two things, but they do represent radical sort of factions of each party's base. They've been sort of discouraged from participating in the electoral process, right? So you're having fewer and fewer of those people, of those groups actually show up, to the point where a lot of the people who are voting now are people who, they're upset about it. They're upset about inflation. They're upset about the economy and jobs and hiring, but it's just kind of an annoyance to them, right? It's the no one wants to work. Oh, it's a drag. Oh, now I got to bring my 10-year-old kid here to work the French fryer thing. Like it's not existential to them in the way that like this is. This is an existential issue to normie voters. It really is, and that's why I think it is especially potent.
Right. I mean, the only question to me is, do the voters in, blue states feel safe from this anyway? So, you know what I mean? Like, is New York going to pass a 15-week abortion ban? I mean, no.
But I mean, New York,
but
New York is a done deal in 2024 anyway. Whatever Democrat is nominated, right? But in the swing states,
right. Does it flip those swing states? I mean, it's such a, people said in the Hillary Trump election, how in a country of 350 million people did we find the two worst people in the country to run against each other? This is going to put that to shame. This is going to make people nostalgic for those choices, because you're going to have a choice between zombie Biden and whatever weird shit the Republican id kicks up as its nominee. And you're going to have to choose between those things.
Right. Absolutely. All righty. We're going to put our Patreon scroll up on the screen. You can go to patreon.com/DueDissidence and help support this show, get bonus content, call-in access to these live streams. So thank you very much to our patrons. Our YouTube members will be added to this scroll for the next show on Sunday. A bunch of you have already signed up. So if you would like to sign up and help keep us going, hit that join button. If the YouTube membership thing works out and we can get enough action going, we should be able to add a third weekly stream sooner than later. And so thank you guys very much for doing that. The more we get coming in, the more time we can devote to this project. And speaking of more coming in, Russell, you got to get your singing bowl there ready, because we had a very generous donation.
Oh, really?
Here. Yeah. From Sean Lancaster for $100.
Holy shit.
Rose, this is such a good show. Well, thank you, Sean. You're such a good viewer. You get one of these types of shout outs for any super chat. $50 and above gets a special singing bowl shout out.
And also a soapy hand job behind the bus station of your choice.
I'd like to be on the bus station of your choice.
Wherever you want us to go.
Yeah,
there
exactly.
I've gotten pretty good with that thing. Huh?
That was pretty good indeed. But thank you very much, Sean. That was very, very kind of you. And we want to put our other Patreon scroll up here. That was our second scroll of the night. So we got a lot of people signing up and joining, so that really does help us out quite a bit. We're looking to add a third stream. It'll probably be like a morning drive time, maybe hour to 90-minute stream, partly because it gives people a chance to watch us a little earlier or listen in the car while they're driving. But also, according to YouTube analytics, 30 to 35% of our viewers actually live in Europe. And so it would be nice for them to get to join the stream.
Is that many?
Yeah, it's a good 30. It's a good 30.
Wow.
Yeah. It ranges from 30 to 35 every month. Some months your numbers are a little higher and lower in certain areas. But yeah, 30 to 35% overseas viewership. And so because of the time difference, obviously, a lot of our viewers from across the pond don't get to watch too many of these live shows. But if we add a third one during the day, we get to interact with some of you.
Well, yeah, folks. It would have to be like afternoon.
Afternoon would be evening time, or if we did morning,
That would
it could be
afternoon.
It could be afternoon, or whatever. We could work that out. But I kind of like the idea of a morning
because
show.
I'm working out the math for when I'm in Italy and Greece in September. It's gonna be a fucking nightmare. I'm gonna have to do it at like 2 and 3 in the morning.
That's right. But yes, that is true actually, because it is going to be like wee hours of the morning. Whereas when you were in India, it was like 5 or 6, which was doable.
Right. Which was it was okay because we were getting up early, getting on these all-night trains and all this shit. It was fine.
Exactly. All right, let's keep going. Like I said, folks, we got a lot of content this evening. Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott made headlines last year for transporting migrants coming up from the southern border up to Martha's Vineyard. Now Greg Abbott has done the same thing after a huge spike in northern migration, sending immigrants to cities like Denver, Chicago, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and, of course, to New York. And so let's watch a little bit of footage from CNN. They were on the ground.
Quiet down in there! I got 6 migrants in the side room over there.
We're done in 2 hours.
I'm only charging them $10 a head per day.
Well, you have that extra room.
Yeah.
Let's hear from CNN down in El Paso, of course, a border city in West Texas, just to give you guys an idea of what's going on.
Difficult to describe, Jim, with words, so I want to walk so you can walk with me and just see the magnitude of the number of individuals who are around this church here, just streets from downtown El Paso. A lot of these individuals you'll see are males, adult males. A lot of the women with children are actually in shelters, in a network of shelters throughout El Paso. As you mentioned, the city of El Paso under a state of emergency. They declared a disaster because of the influx, because they know that once Title 42 lifts, that there is going to be a greater influx of migrants.
All right, just before we go further with this video, for those who don't know, El Paso is right on the Mexican border. Not only is it on the border, but I learned this driving through El Paso a couple times when I drove across country. El Paso and Juarez, from a bird's eye view, look like the same city. It looks like one city. It's one big urban area. About 20% of that urban area is El Paso, and then 80% of it is Juarez, Mexico. Juarez is a huge city.
And there's a river dividing it, though, right?
There's a river, but it's the Rio Grande. It's a tiny little river. I mean, you could cross it on foot, basically. It's like a creek running through the desert, really. It's not much of a river. That's why it's so easy to cross.
It used to be.
Yeah, but not anymore. Not anymore. It's and sometimes you could even see the Rio Grande right from the highway. I think Highway 10. I remember driving on Highway 10. There are some parts where you could even see the river right there. So that's why the border is so easily crossed in this area, because it's one big city, basically, with a border running through it. All right, here we go.
But here's the thing. So process this with me. Title 42 allows immigration agents to swiftly return migrants back to Mexico. So the obvious question, as you look around, is then why are there so many migrants if the federal government is actually implementing this Title 42? Then why are there so many migrants out here? Well, here's what we know. From talking to migrants and community leaders and officials on both sides of the border, I can tell you that thousands of migrants, nearly 40,000, are in at least 4 northern Mexican cities, and frustration is boiling over. A lot of them are deciding to cross the border. That's why you see so many out here. Some of them are turning themselves in to border authorities, Jim. Others are deciding to cross the border illegally because they've lost patience.
All right, so there's from CNN. Now, of course, New York City Mayor Eric Adams took issue with Greg Abbott's stunt, if you want to call it that, but he has been making sub-headlines here for not only criticizing Greg Abbott, but also criticizing his own party's leadership, calling out Joe Biden's mishandling of the southern border. This is from a Politico article. More than 57,000 migrants, mostly hailing from Latin America, have arrived in the city since last spring. That's New York, while Chicago has fielded more than 8,000 newcomers. City Hall projects it will cost New York more than $2.9 billion over the next year to provide the migrants with housing, food, and other services. Adams' rhetoric about the situation has become increasingly heated, more closely mirroring Republican talking points in recent weeks. During a roundtable in late April with other black mayors, including Lightfoot, he said the city is being destroyed. Now, he didn't. Yeah, well, here's where this goes.
Can you imagine if a Republican said it? AOC would have tweeted about it before he finished the sentence.
That's the kind of shit they wanted Tucker Carlson canceled 4 years ago. Right. Before Fox canned him, was he said the immigrants are dirtying up our
right
cities, right? I mean, that's pretty much exactly what he said. Now, Adams didn't save all of his criticism for his own party leadership. He had some not so kind words for Abbott, going as far as to insinuate that Abbott was targeting black-run cities, so cities with black mayors. Here's him clarifying that point at a press conference.
Governor Abbott sent asylum seekers to New York, black mayor, to Washington, black mayor, to Houston, black mayor, to Los Angeles, black mayor, to Denver, black mayor. He passed over thousands of cities to land here. And so I don't think El Paso, I don't think Brownsville, Texas, I don't think any of those other cities should have to bear the weight of the failure in Washington, D.C. And so it was wrong for the mayor of El Paso to do it. No one should use human beings as political pawns. And I cannot ignore the fact that Governor Abbott sent migrants only to cities with their black mayors. And is undermining our cities.
Undermining our cities. Okay, so why? Why is it undermining your
Also, it's not true. He was being interviewed, and Philadelphia is run by a white mayor. And they asked him about it, and he kind of backed off on this claim. It's not about black mayors. It's about Democratic-run cities, which are more likely to have a black mayor. Right. It's about Democrat cities that have claimed to be sanctuary cities, right? They've claimed to be sanctuary cities.
You've all gone to the protest. No hate, no fear. Immigrants are welcome here.
Welcome
here.
Here?
Welcome here. Oh, no, we didn't mean here.
We didn't mean here.
We meant here.
We meant here.
We meant
like
here.
United States generally.
Yeah, right, exactly. We meant like El Paso, right?
Yeah.
That's what the New York liberals mean.
That's what you meant by here.
Right.
Here meaning there. There.
Right. By here, we mean down there.
I have said this
Texas,
from the beginning.
Arizona, yeah.
Whatever you think about Abbott, whatever you think about DeSantis, whatever you think about Republicans, whatever you think about immigration, I have said from the moment they started doing this that this was one of the most genius trolls in political history because they're right. Where's the lie? Where's the lie? These communities are being are having to process hundreds, thousands of immigrants a week. Communities like El Paso that are a fraction the size of New York, a fraction the size of Chicago, a fraction the size of even Philadelphia in terms of their economy, their population, their infrastructure, their social services. So you send a few thousand to New York and it destroys the budget of New York. So how are they supposed to feel? This is what they've been saying the whole time. And you've been calling them racists, right? So they said, okay, well, we're going to spread the wealth. And you guys, you're a sanctuary city. So we're going to send some to you. They're not sending them to Honduras. They're not sending them off to Borneo. They're sending them still within the borders of the United States.
No, hey, look, they're sending them to nice liberal Democrat cities.
They
not
should
to
be
these
better
mean
taken
MAGA
care of,
Republican fascist cities, right? No, they're sending them to the places where the people go out in the street and they chant at Donald Trump that the immigrants are welcome here.
Right.
We're welcome here. And this was not like Martha's Vineyard where they set the migrants up and lied to them and said there were jobs waiting for them. They actually told them, okay, you're going to Denver, you're going to LA, right? And so
and they voluntarily went there.
Right. They went. They said, okay, great. I'm sure those people in New York, I'm sure all those cosmopolitan Fifth Avenue dwelling New Yorkers, I'm sure they mean what they say when they say we're a tolerant city and all are welcome.
We're a sanctuary city.
We're a sanctuary city. Well, yeah, this is what Adams said here. So a spokesperson for Abbott, Abbott, sound the same, said in a statement, I'm struggling to read this. Mayor Adams, along with Mayor Bowser, Lightfoot, and Mayor Kenney were proud to tout their self-declared sanctuary city status until Texas began busing migrants to New York, Washington, Chicago, Philadelphia to provide relief to our overrun and overwhelmed border communities. The spokesperson added, with millions of residents, New York is only dealing with a fraction of what our small border communities deal with on a day-to-day basis. That's what Russell said earlier. The real crisis isn't in New York City. It's on our southern border, where Biden's open border policies have allowed record high levels of illegal immigrants, deadly drugs like fentanyl, and weapons to surge into our state and country. Now, it's interesting because, of course, they're going to go to the open border line. But actually, the problem goes far beyond that. It's actually that our facilities, which, by the way, under Biden, they're called facilities. Under Trump, they're cages, right?
They're cages, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Our facilities have become so overrun that now a lot of migrants are being sent back south, and they are overrunning facilities in Mexico.
Right.
That's how that fire happened that we talked about. I think that was about a month back. Because you have thousands of migrants overcrowding not just our cages, but cages in Mexico as well. And migrants sleeping out on the street.
Facilities.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Facilities. In 2 years, when Trump is back in office, they'll be called cages again. But for now, facilities. Sorry.
Facilities.
Didn't want to be inaccurate there.
Maybe
look,
resorts.
You're creating chaos all over the place because a certain amount of migrants are getting in, a certain amount are being held here, a certain amount are being held south of the U.S.-Mexico line, certain amount are not being detained in those south of the border facilities. A lot of them are living out on the street there, resorting to prostitution, drug dealing, right? They're just a horrible life. And so, yeah, it's a complete disaster all across the board. I mean, this was the issue. This was the big issue. I mean, this was the issue that the libs were most offended by Trump about, because he started the campaign with the Mexicans are sending their worst, they're sending their rapists and the drug dealers, stuff like that. I don't think there's any argument to be made that Joe Biden is not much worse than Trump on this issue. The effects of what Biden has done are much, much worse, because part of the reason why you're having this influx of migrants at the border is precisely because of Democratic hypocrisy on this issue, because a lot of migrants felt that now with Trump gone, they're going to be treated better when they get here, but they're not. Right. And look at the chaos that has caused.
Well,
I mean,
you wouldn't know it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Because you wouldn't know it because as soon as Biden becomes president, it's not a story anymore. Right? You wouldn't know anything about it. You wouldn't, if they were not busing migrants to Democrat cities, this wouldn't even be a story. The only element of this, they covered it when the facility caught fire. Very briefly. They didn't even cover it that much. If that had happened under Trump, oh my God, that would have been all you heard about for a month. They would have been covering that story constantly.
I'm sorry, I have to take this. And don't worry, I'm going to be nice. CIA. That's right, asshole. They're all prostitutes and drug dealers. Yeah. I clearly did not say that they are all prostitutes and drug dealers. What I said was that a lot of them are having to resort to doing that because of the desperate situation that they have been put in, because your president cannot keep his word to be humane. That's why it's happening. That's what's creating the logjam, is people are coming up thinking they're going to be treated better than the way Trump treated them. And then when they find out they're not, they get turned away. And if there's no place for them to stay, a lot of them, yes, look it up, have to live on the streets of these Mexican cities where there are no opportunities but the worst kind. So that is a far cry from branding them all drug dealers and prostitutes, which I know everybody knows. Okay, but I just felt like I had to say that publicly.
Yeah, I mean, come on, man. You know these assholes.
No,
they
I
don't-
know.
They're not honest. They don't make
No,
honest
I understand
arguments.
that. I understand.
These are people with, you know, minchia piccolo for all the Italians out there who need to, you know, need to try to express themselves that way. But yeah, look, that's why this is such an effective troll, because they're exposing the NIMBY tendency of Democrats in real time, like we covered where my old camera fucked me when we had Sabby on. I couldn't do the segment.
Right. Yeah, no, I thought of that same segment when we were talking about
that was the whole point of the segment. Yo, Washington State has more regressive taxation than Texas, right? All of these supposedly liberal areas like Palo Alto, you can't get affordable housing built. This is Democrats. That's what's disgusting about them. It's their hypocrisy. It's their hypocrisy. You know, I'd rather you know, have an open enemy than somebody who smiles to your face like that and stabs you in the back.
Even if you're talking open enemy, look, I want people to name one policy difference between Biden and Trump on the southern border, besides the family separation, which Biden did not do and Trump did. Now, as horrible as horrible as that family separation policy was, turns out there were about 500 kids who could not be reunited with their guardians. Right now, that is beyond a tragedy. I think that is a crime. That is just an offense to humanity that happened to those kids. But if we're talking about numbers here, you're talking about 500 kids. You look at the tens of thousands of migrants who are now in shambles because of the chaos that is happening here. I mean, the numbers are not even close. When that father, and I think it was his daughter, may have been his son, but it was a photo that went viral of a father and his kid drowned in the river because they were turned away. And that circulated on social media everywhere. You could not get away from it. Look at what Trump made these people do. You have now literally tens of thousands of migrants over flooding, yes, cages. I'm going to be red pill here. Not only flooding the cages, but there are too many of them to keep a roof over their head. And it is just causing just this unbelievable turmoil in their own lives, And yet we don't hear anything about it. AOC is not going to the border and crying anymore. Like, you don't hear anything about it.
And you know what? The right-wing media has pointed that out.
That the Republican governors are doing.
That's it. No, we get no coverage. No. And if you look at right media, they keep pointing that out, and they're right. Where's AOC at the border? Why isn't she going to the border anymore? Right? Where's all this attention that was on the border when Trump was the president? Remember Rachel Maddow literally crying on the air about the children in cages? Where is she? Where is she? Where are they now? So I'll tell you, as a New Yorker, I'm not offended. I feel like these border towns that have been branded as racist for feeling completely overwhelmed with their very limited means and their very limited infrastructure to handle something like what we saw in not Fox News, CNN. That was a CNN segment that we showed. I don't blame them for feeling that way. I don't think they're racist I'm sure there are some racists down there. You know what? There's a lot of racists up here too. You know, this makes me think of how the North has always tried to make racism a Southern issue. We've always tried to put it on them, right? Like we're not that. And this illustrates that too. You know, so as soon as they start sending migrants up here, all of a sudden we start crying too. And Eric Adams in particular has a long history of deflecting to race. Eric Adams literally tried to argue that rent stabilization laws in New York, which are, I believe, the strictest by far in the country. It's why it's like getting into Fort Knox to rent an apartment in New York, because it's so hard to get you out. If the tenant fucks the landlord, he's going to be screwed for like a year trying to get you out, at least, if not longer. He argued that rent stabilization laws hurt Black landlords.
Right.
About 5% of landlords are Black, right? So he tried to make it that kind of an issue to raise rent on all New Yorkers. So how many Blacks are renters who would be hurt by that versus how many Blacks are landlords that would be helped if you got rid of rent stabilization in New York City? So yeah, I mean, it's just a classic Democrat NIMBY thing. And that's why it's genius. Look, just because I don't like Abbott, I don't like DeSantis, I don't like any of these guys, but even a stop clock tells the right time twice a day. And when they say that these problems are real problems and it's not a race issue, it's a logistics and resources issue, and you wouldn't like it if you had to deal with it, and then they send a tiny fraction of what they're dealing with, and all of them, Lori Lightfoot, oh my God, it's destroying the city. Well, they made their point, and you proved their point with those statements.
That's what makes it such a checkmate move, is that as a Democratic mayor, as a Lori Lightfoot or an Eric Adams, you can't take issue with what Abbott's doing without admitting that you don't want the migrants.
Right.
Like, that's just a checkmate. There's no way to maneuver at that. The only way you can take issue with what they're doing is by admitting that you don't want them here, because if you did want them here, then you would say, yeah, sure, fine. If you guys are too racist to have them in your state, sure, send them here.
Yeah, please.
We got plenty of room.
We're a sanctuary.
We're not only that, but with the number of vacant apartments sitting around in New York now, where you have what, 30 to 40% of all new apartment sales are to overseas buyers. You got a lot of space in New York City.
No, we lost more population than any other city per capita, and we're continuing to lose population.
Yeah, a lot of people,
and we were losing population before COVID.
And in New York City, a lot of the people who live there don't really live there. Right. They're there a few weeks out of the year, right? So you got plenty of room.
Right.
You got plenty of room. That's not an issue.
Yeah, Demi Moore, man. She has a place over there at the San Remo. Madonna has a place there. I'm sure Madonna's hardly ever there.
What's the second biggest? What is that? That's on Park Avenue? The real tall, thin.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
I'm sure they got plenty of units in that building.
Sure.
Plenty.
Sure. No, 50% of the units in Midtown are empty. They're owned, but nobody's
there. Right. Exactly.
Right. It's like you have these oligarchs overseas will buy them like buying diamonds and gold. Like it's just part of their overall portfolio to own a New York apartment. So yeah, man, all these people, I'm sure most of them are liberals and Davos kind of people, man. Put them in there. Why not?
All right, let's do another New York story. This is another really dark story. This has been the talk of everything recently. We're talking about, of course, the Jordan Neely killing on the subway. The New York Times put out a tweet headline here that I thought was noticeable. I tweeted about this myself. A 30-year-old man died on the subway on Monday after he was placed in a chokehold, the police said. Witnesses said the victim had been acting in a, quote, hostile and erratic manner towards passengers on the train when the other man, 24, moved to restrain him. So Jordan was obviously, I'm sure many of you guys have heard this story, placed in a chokehold for 15 minutes and died. The 24-year-old man who choked him was a Marine. We have a little bit of reporting here. This was from a passenger on the train who gave this quote to the New York Post after the incident happened. He, meaning Jordan, started screaming in an aggressive manner. He said he had no food, he had no drink, that he was tired and doesn't care if he goes to jail. He started screaming all these things, took off his jacket, a black jacket that he had, and threw it on the ground. Now, the first thing that caught my eye, because this was on camera, and we're not allowed to show that kind of violence here on YouTube without the video getting an age restriction on it, in which case no one would see it.
And we mainly market to children.
Yeah, exactly. Well, honestly, I'm not interested in showing that video anyway. It was really, really horrible to watch. I did watch it. But he was in the chokehold for 15 minutes. So here you have a white man chokes a black man to death on camera. But it seems like because that black man was a homeless man, that the incident could be described in this very passive voice. Well, he died on the subway. He was acting in an erratic manner, and there was another passenger on the train who moved to restrain him. Now, look, I lived in New York City for 7 years. Russell has lived in New York City for 81 years. Okay.
181.
181 years. We are both New Yorkers here. I want to talk about this in a way that speaks truth to my experience riding the subway every day in New York as I did. I rode this F train every day in New York for the first 2 years that I lived there. I worked at Radio City Music Hall. I took the L in from sort of the Greenpoint, East Williamsburg border there. Got it the F at 6th Avenue, took it up about 5 stops to Rockefeller Center. Now, the significance of that 5 stops is that the train finally stopped at the Broadway Lafayette stop. So this was a local train running in Manhattan, which means assuming it was not stopped in a tunnel for any road work or traffic or anything like that, this train had to have made about 5 stops because that's about the time it took me to get from 14th up to 51st. It goes Broadway Lafayette, West 4th, 14th, 23rd, 34th, 42nd. So you're talking about, and these stops are all, maybe 2,
Rockefeller.
3. Yeah, Rockefeller would be the next one. These are all like 2-3 minutes apart. So if he's getting a chokehold for 15 minutes, there were ample opportunities. Like I said, unless the train was parked somewhere, which we don't know, but there were ample opportunities to simply take the guy off the train, get the conductor to stop the train, they get the cops down there, and they deal with this. That's if you have to choke him and detain him. Now, I want to speak to that in a second, too, because as someone who's ridden the subway many, many times, I want to be absolutely accurate in my sort of assessment of how often you run into an issue on the subway. It's not all the time. It's not most of the time. It's not even half the time. I would, though, put it at 20 to 25% of the time you get on a subway, there's going to be a nut on the subway who makes you at least a little bit uncomfortable. Now, maybe this was a particularly hostile person on the subway, but feeling uncomfortable on the subway because a homeless person is going off on the subway is a fairly common occurrence in New York. It's something that people deal with all the time. And so for me, I've ridden on the subway where I had a homeless guy spit in my face one time. I was standing on a crowded train, just holding.
You have that kind of face, Keith.
Yeah, that's true. I have a very spittable face. I've heard. I'm holding the center bar, and I hear a guy ranting, and I didn't really know. I didn't bother looking up. It's background noise. Like it happens so often. A lot of times you don't even react to that. And then I felt a wad of spit in my face, and I looked up. It turns out this guy, for some reason, was just ranting at me. I don't, and it's not like I was sitting in a seat. It's not like I did anything that would prompt it.
Sometimes on a subway, you have to be
careful. Like sometimes you have to be careful. Like if you sit in a seat that a guy was going to take, maybe they get pissed off or something like that, or if you're blocking their way or whatever. But no, this was nothing like that at all. And I choose not to escalate in those situations. I was getting off at the next stop anyway. I just got off because the situation can only get worse, I think, if you start a fight over that, right? And some people would say you're not starting it, you're simply responding. Fair enough. There are some people who are just not going to take shit or who are going to be threatened. We're going to feel threatened in a way by that kind of erratic and hostile attitude that they are going to take matters into their own hands. That's happened on the subway too. I've seen skirmishes break out where, somebody pushes somebody too far or he says the wrong thing to the wrong guy and a thing happens, right? However, it never occurred to me that any of these things would end in a guy being placed in a 15-minute chokehold. Like, to me, if you're a New Yorker you have to have thicker skin than that. I'm sorry. Like, the fact that you would choke the guy for 15 minutes and not even at any point, like, say, all right, are we good now? Are you cool? Can I let you go? Like, there was no communication. No, you just hold him there until he dies for 15 minutes, possibly across multiple stops where you had the opportunity to actually get off the train and call for help, or just remove the guy from the train car. Just take him off the train. If you have him constrained, as he obviously did, then why couldn't you just remove him from the car? To me, there's no reason this had to end this way. And one of the reasons I wanted to cover this is because, as someone in New York, I do understand that it can be scary and uncomfortable to have a guy go off on a train. You're underground, you're in a dark tunnel, the cops are not right there for you if you need them, right? But these situations are fairly common. They're fairly common, and there's no excuse for it to have ended in this way.
Okay. All right. So this poor man was, in my opinion, killed by the way that we deal with mental illness in New York before he ever got on that train. This is something I have some personal experience with. My building where I live has been tormented. Those of you who have been longtime viewers will know about this. Tormented by a severely mentally ill tenant on the first floor. He has been arrested, detained, brought to psychiatric facilities multiple times. There's currently a warrant out for his arrest because he stole an entire mattress out of the hallway just last week. New owners have taken over the building, and they're in the process of evicting him. I'm sure they will probably eventually be successful. This person literally, in the height of the pandemic, during the lockdown, was rubbing shit, his own shit, on the walls of the building in the middle of a pandemic. We still could not get him committed. And I'm not saying this in a retaliatory way. He needs help. That's horrible that they keep letting this person go back to live by himself in this apartment, going crazy down there. I've seen the apartment when they've broken down the door. It's like bizarre ritualistic stacking of boxes and things. You know, I mean, he's sick. It's not his fault. But this is what the city does. So when you see pictures that they're showing of this guy doing Michael Jackson, you know, I'm sure that's not what was going on with him now, because the guy downstairs used to go to work in a camel hair coat and a suit. And that's not what he looks like now. My suspicion, given the age that he is and the fact that he wasn't like that and then he became like that, is it's probably schizophrenia, which tends to come on in around college age. You know, and it's a tragedy. Basically, they got much looser about the standards of involuntary commitment, first as part of a project of deinstitutionalization in the 50s and 60s and 70s, of taking people out of institutions and putting them into communities, right? This, as very often happens with the best of intentions, yes, that's not a bad idea if you fund proper support services for the mentally ill. Like maybe this person down on the first floor could live properly on his own if he had social workers and psychologists coming in to help him out and to give him counseling, but he doesn't have any of that. He's just sitting there by himself, going crazy in a room. And there are a lot of people like that. The only reason he's not homeless is because his father used to own the building. That's how he wound up there. Once he gets evicted, he is going to be one of these people out on the street. And because the system, there is a warrant out for his arrest right now. And in my opinion, there shouldn't be. There shouldn't be. He needs to go to a psychiatric facility. He does not need to be in prison. And I believe by estimates, the majority of people in prison are victims of mental illness, a majority. So this is the system really failing people. This victim on the subway, he had been detained 40 times. 40 times. Why was he not placed in a psychiatric facility? Clearly, there's something going on with him. Why was he left on the street? And this is really what's sick about it. So this rather idealistic movement to deinstitutionalize people also saved the government a lot of money, right? It cost them money to put people into psychiatric facilities. So that's why you didn't get more resistance against it, because for them, they're saving money. They got to cut a lot of beds over the last 20 years. 18% of the beds for people with mental illness have been cut in New York City. But now Eric Adams, when he did become mayor last year, said they were going to start to more aggressively involuntarily commit mentally ill homeless people. We have an article about that. Oh, right. That's my
that's
you
yours.
don't have it.
Because you had specific parts.
I'm so used to you having it. All right, so hang on. Here we go. All right. So you got it, right?
Yep.
All right. So what happened when Eric Adams tried to address this? And listen, I am no fan of Adams. Okay. He was the first politician I did a gotcha question on the street. We aired that a while back. Faces backlash for move to involuntarily hospitalize homeless people. So here was his statement. For too long, there has been a gray area where policy, law, and accountability have not been clear. And this has allowed people in need to slip through the cracks, Adams said. This culture of uncertainty has led to untold suffering and deep frustration. It cannot continue. And you know what? There are questions about whether the city, as I said, they cut 18% of beds. So if you did enforce this policy, where would they go? Would they be properly taken care of? Those are all legitimate questions. But that basic statement is absolutely right. But naturally, he got pushback. So Mayor Adams continues to get it wrong when it comes to his reliance on ineffective surveillance, policing, and involuntary transport and treatment of people with mental illness. Jacqueline Simone, policy director for the Coalition for the Homeless, said in a statement on Tuesday, homeless people are more likely to be the victims of crimes than the perpetrators. That's true. But Mayor Adams has continually scapegoated homeless people and others with mental illness as violent. I don't really think that's the point there. How do I unshare? Stop sharing. Okay. There are a lot of people like this victim on the subway who should have been in a facility. I'm not blaming the victim. I'm blaming the system. I'm blaming the system that did not give him the help that he needed. This is a legitimate area that we on the left cannot just in a knee-jerk fashion say, no, we can't talk about it on that level. This is terrible. The police. We can't go that way because you empower the right wing when you do that, because that's not a reasonable position. That is not compassionate towards these people. We have a photograph of the person that I'm talking about. Show you I'm not talking out of my ass.
Yeah, and we don't show his face, and we're not going to give him.
No, of course not. Of course not. Of course not. They literally pulled him out of his apartment in a tinfoil hat. He was back in that apartment in a few days. In a few days, they put that guy back in an apartment. Now, he is going to wind up eventually being evicted. What's going to happen to him? He's going to be out there on the street. He's going to be one of these people on the subway. in terms of what actually happened. It has definitely been scarier in New York post-pandemic. I've been in situations since the pandemic more than ever before the pandemic where, you'll have mentally ill people going off on the subway. Every time I'm on the subway, no. Most of the time I'm on the subway, no. But it happens more than it used to, where you have situations that are scary. And you wonder if you're going to be one of those people who winds up on the news that night. Wrong place, wrong time. When you're sealed inside a metal box in a tunnel with somebody screaming violent threats and walking up to people, it's a scary position to be in. And I think that's a big part of why, from what I've seen of people who were interviewed who were in that subway car, none of them seem to feel that this person should not have been restrained. Now, the question is, as a New Yorker, if shit goes down on the train like that, what will normally happen is the next station you get into, everyone runs to the conductor, right? Everybody runs off that car as fast as they possibly can. Get the NYPD, get the NYPD. Right. I don't understand why this person was choked for 15 minutes. What? Like, what happened? What happened there? There doesn't seem to be any, there is no reason for that. And why even use a choke? Like, if this guy was a trained Marine, aren't there other ways that this person could have been restrained? So this is basically what I'm saying. You can't, if you've never experienced that, you can't just have a knee jerk. Nobody should have intervened. Nobody should have done anything. But what they did was unnecessary. It didn't have to go down like that. And I really want to, as Keaton points out, 15 minutes is like 5 stops. So how could you not?
5 stops. The train stopped 5 times. There's a local train.
Right. So I that doesn't make any sense. Like, the very first stop you get to, you should have gone to the conductor and gotten the NYPD. I don't understand why none of the bystanders did that. So
no, look, even before this, scarier time that you speak of, I haven't lived in New York City since 2017, so I wouldn't know. I've probably ridden the subway 5 or 6 times in the past 3-4 years, right?
That shit goes on more, and it seems to be more extreme.
Okay, but like even in my day, even in the pre-pandemic sort of halcyon days, 2014, 2015, right? There were people who did not take that shit well. Like, if someone went up to them on the subway, there were some people who fought back. And look, like, some people are just not going to let anybody get up in their face, no matter who they are or what the deal is. And, that's the way it goes. I mean, you live in a big city of 8 million people. You're going to have people who take shit and people who don't. To choke a guy for 15 minutes is extreme. And, whether it's homicide or manslaughter, it's got to be something. I would say, man, I've had a lot of interactions with people on subways who could have been deemed a threat. I never occurred to me to choke one of them. Never occurred to anyone I was in the proximity of to choke any of them. And some people did fight back. They don't choke them to death.
Right. Well, yeah. This is why I'm saying, if you're a trained Marine, you should know how dangerous a chokehold is. That's why the cops aren't allowed to use them.
Right.
And
he's on the floor
listen,
laying
man,
under him.
If you don't know martial arts, you ever mess with somebody who knows martial arts, man, they can just like grab your arm and twist it in a way that you can't move. Like, hold the back of your neck. Right. Just hold you like that. So why was a chokehold necessary? Like, was the guy being a cowboy? Was he trying to show off? Was he trying to play hero? It seems that way. All I'm saying is, look, that is pretty terrifying. And it wasn't just him, it was 2 other guys. And none of the people who were on that subway car who have been interviewed, maybe other people felt differently, seemed to feel like this person should not have been restrained. And having been in that situation many times, I can tell you, man, a lot of the people who are just categorically saying this person should never have been touched, nothing should have been done, they wouldn't have been saying that if they had been on that car. I promise you, they wouldn't be saying
I'm on Twitter a decent amount these days. I honestly haven't heard anybody put it that way. You know what I mean? I like the comments that I've heard was that this was an extreme overreaction, especially for a New Yorker, who for whom like this stuff is not so out of the ordinary.
That's my other question.
Like,
is that guy a New Yorker?
Right. Like this is like the thing that like a tourist from Kansas would do, who just has never had an interaction of this kind. I think, oh my God, there's a crazy person on the subway, as if that's not kind of par for the course almost when you take a train. Right. So yeah, that's another question I had, because as someone who, like I said, used to ride the subway all the time, it's just so maddening that this went down this way. But also I think that the bigger story here, and actually Nathan Robinson wrote an article in Newsweek that I haven't read yet, but I think the headline was more or less right. Actually, I'll give credit where it's due. He said, this is a reflection, like, I'm sorry, like this headline here assumes, and, like the New York Post is obviously much less tactful about this than the Times. They called the, Jordan Neely a vagrant, right? But even the Times, even the liberal New York Times, just sort of assumes that, yeah, this was handled in a way that was, if not appropriate, forgivable, or, understandable, because, hey, this is a crazy homeless person. Like there is this, we have dehumanized poor people and homeless people.
Sure.
And there is this sort of prevailing sense that their lives are not important. They don't mean anything.
Well,
and so therefore, if you feel it all threatens, choking them to death over the course of 15 minutes is not immediately chargeable in some way. Like it seems like that has to be chargeable in some way. And when it comes to the sort of like compulsory sort of institutionalization of mentally ill people, like I obviously think, yes, this guy should have been in a home. Your downstairs neighbor should have been in a home. But beyond that, this just, I'm sorry, there's a kind of a running theme this evening. This just speaks to a decay of capitalism and a decay of our civilization. You have a guy here screaming, no food, no drink, tired, and doesn't care if he goes to jail. You know how fucked a person has to be for them to not be afraid of going to jail. Jail's a pretty horrible place. Jail in New York is a pretty horrible place. Rikers is no picnic. You got any idea, for a guy who's been arrested 40 times, for him to say, I've had it, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I don't care if I go to jail. Okay, this guy's at the end of his rope. Like this is a system that fails people in obviously more ways than one. Not just in terms of not getting him the help that he needs, but in terms of, I'm sorry, New York, we talked about this in our last segment, really rich city, lots of housing available. Okay, a lot of very, very wealthy people, a lot of very wealthy, compassionate, good liberals live in New York. And yet the subways have become this underworld of chaos and desperation and despair. I mean, it was like that when I lived there. It's got to be worse now. It's got to be more unequal now than ever before.
There's a lot of shit that you haven't seen here in a long time that's kind of come back, right, post-pandemic. And yes, it is a collapse of capitalism. It's also a lot of chickens coming home to roost. It's a lot of long simmering problems that, as long as the economy was really strong and gentrification was continuing apace, it was easier to cover it up. I'll say this as a contributing factor, that, you kind of have to live here now to feel it. The vibe is more tense than it was before. It's just a tenser vibe. People are more paranoid. Like they're more, because you do legit have more violence. So you have more headlines about violence. So naturally, people are more afraid that this isn't going to end well than they might have been before. Which would make them more prone to react preemptively before it gets to that point. And again, somebody who was arrested 40 times. I'm not saying he should have been in jail. He should have gotten the help that he needed. He should not have been out there. Mentally ill people are 16 times more likely to be killed by the police because, yeah, I mean, this guy, there's no saying he was arrested on violent assault in the past. There's no reason to say this wouldn't have gone that way. Maybe the cops wound up killing him instead of this guy. Like, it's dangerous for them to not give them the help they need, to just continuously arrest, let them go, arrest, let them go. They shouldn't even be in the system that way. They should be where they can get the help that they need. They're not criminals. They're mentally ill.
All right. Let's go on to a lighter story here. We put this one after this just to lighten the mood a bit, just to kind of come up for air a little bit. I know that's an intense one, but we covered these guys on the show last week. We're talking about Harry and Chris, the two Biden Gen Z influencers who denied and then retracted their denial, it seems, that they were being paid by the DNC, although they still maintain that they're not. But Tim Dillon had them on his podcast, and he got an interesting quote from them because he told them, he said, you guys just seem like you're kind of partisan hacks. You're only calling out one side. Why don't you ever criticize your own party? Things like that. And they gave him an answer that they very quickly regretted and asked him not to make a clip of it. But alas, he did anyway. So here's this little bit of sound. This is kind of fun.
I've never seen a video of you guys being introspective at all. In the sense that it just seems like you're cheerleaders for one side instead of going, hey, I'm a young guy. I want to be involved and I'm passionate about this, but maybe our side isn't perfect in this way and that way.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it's actually really hard in this space, right? Like we have 45 seconds to record a video, keep people's attention. And a lot of the people on our side, if they start hearing, I've actually done it before. I've criticized, Democrats, specifically Hakeem Jeffries, and it all just went south. I started losing followers. It's bad, right? And I really want to be that person that, reaches the other side because Democrats, I mean, they're horrible at their jobs, right? They do a lot of shitty things, although I'll vote for them all the time. But
I'll vote for them.
That's good. Can we
I'll vote for them all the time?
No, this is good here.
I'll vote for them all the time. But it's also hard in the space to criticize
That's
them.
good. Can we clip that quote?
Clip that quote. And then he goes on and says, "Oh no, please, no, please."
You didn't use that part. That was the best part.
In that clip. Oh no, please, no.
Yeah, he's paid because he realized, oh shit, I'm getting paid by those people.
Oh wait a minute. Oh shit.
Oh, the grift is up.
Yeah.
I let the cat out of the bag.
Oh no! Oh wait a minute! Did I say they're horrible at their job? I mean, how do you go out and say they're horrible at their job?
Not fully developed until 30 brain.
Yeah, your whole shtick is that they're awesome at their job. That's your whole thing.
That's your whole thing, right?
Yeah, that's your whole thing. Is that they're great at their job.
Well, this proves that you were right because you said when we showed it, nobody could possibly really believe this, right? So no, they don't actually believe that. They don't actually believe it.
They may believe the Republicans are worse. There are a lot of people who think that.
Oh, sure.
But they don't actually believe the whole cheerleading for Joe Biden and the touting that. I mean, yeah, of course it's scripted. Of course it's the most obvious thing in the world.
Right. They're getting paid. They're getting paid. Yeah. I mean, they pulled down the video where they denied being paid. So clearly they're being paid.
Right.
They're being paid. Crazy Eyes Politics girl over there is getting paid. This is the all-white online army that the Biden camp has put together.
Yeah, exactly. The influencer army. All right, that was just a little palate cleanser, folks. Thought I'd play that. I got a kick out of that segment. That was fun. Let's go on to, so this is a big one. This one's kind of funny, too. There's some elements of this that are not so funny, but Tucker Carlson was fired from Fox News early last week, and early this week, some leaks have surfaced of dirt on Tucker. So we have a little video montage of the sort of best of those leaks, and then we will get to the text message that has been the talk of the online world these past few days. So first, a quick video montage, and then we'll get to the texts. By the way, we are going to get to super chats after this segment. We do have a lot of content to get through tonight, but after this segment, we will take a super chat break. So don't worry, we will get to you guys. We have not forgotten about you. Here's a montage of some of the juiciest bits of the Tucker leaks.
Well, that was a week, I'll say. Holy shit. 10 hours. That slimy little motherfucker sitting across from me. Oh, you're the best. And I wasn't talking about you. It's just the opposite.
He's giving you a compliment.
No, I'm not. What do you mean? Because you've never been this affirmed in your life? But thank you, Alex. Have a happy weekend. See you, man. The amount, it was so unhealthy, the hate. Thank you, Teresa. The hate that I felt for that guy. I mean, thank you, Ted.
It must have been somebody he was interviewing.
How could you not? I never. Oh, no. This is about the lawyer for the Dominion case.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I thought that was just a segment.
He's talking about when he had to appear in court for the Dominion case.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I did not know that.
He's talking about the lawyer.
I did not know that. I should have caught that, but thank you. Yeah. Okay.
I don't feel that way. I think it's wrong. It's bad. It's totally bad for you to feel that way. But that guy, I mean, he triggered the shit out of me. Fuck it, we'll do it live. This is airing on the nighttime show, and I want it to look official. I don't want it to.
So this is him arguing about why we're doing this segment for the Fox Nation website because he has a problem with the way that website works. Go ahead. Did you have something to add there?
I mean, you'll see as we go on, unless there's something I haven't seen. It says a lot about Fox that they thought this footage made them look bad because there's nothing in here that makes them look bad. What made them look bad was the text.
Which we will.
They finally found something that actually made them look bad. The rest of this actually humanized them a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too. So here's this.
Bro talk, and I, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the majority of it, like if we go like 45 minutes, it's going to be for Fox Nation.
But nobody's going to watch it on Fox Nation. Nobody watches Fox Nation because the site sucks. So I'd really like to just dump the whole thing on YouTube.
This is like how Russell and I talk an hour prior to the show.
Or like 15 minutes before the show.
Nobody's going to watch that segment. No one's going to care about this segment. This segment sucks. Let's not do it. No,
I just don't understand why they thought this was damaging to him to call the lawyer for Dominion a slimy motherfucker. Right. Especially with a conservative audience. Like why, which presumably that's who you're trying to undermine him with. I don't know why they would have thought that hurt him. And talking about how the fucking Fox website sucks. Like, what, did you think people were going to watch that and go, oh my God. He said bad things about the Fox website. I've completely misjudged him.
Right, exactly. What a monster.
Like, what was this supposed to be?
Yeah, no, it's wild.
But anyway, that's just my view. I'm just frustrated with it's hard to use that site. I don't know why they're not fixing it. It's driving me insane. And they're like making like Lifetime movies, but they don't work on the infrastructure of the site. Like what? It's crazy, and it drives me crazy because it's like we're doing all this extra work and no one can find it. It's unbelievable, actually. I don't know who runs that site.
We're going to play a sizable chunk on the show tomorrow night. That's the plan. And then what it's going to do is drive a lot of people to watch this on Fox Nation. It's going to be a great help to what we're doing over there on TV today.
I know, but we're doing our part. We're like working like animals to produce all this content, and the people in charge of it, whoever that guy's, whatever his name is, like they're ignoring the fact that the site doesn't work. And I think it's like a betrayal of our efforts. That's how I feel. So of course I resent it. You wouldn't? Okay. I'm not, you know what? I'm not qualified on that score, I will say. I thought his girlfriend was kind of yummy. Just kidding. Just kidding. In case this is being pulled off the bird. Yeah, the bird. Hey, media matters for America. Go fuck yourself. That's the first thing I want to say. Second, I'm just totally kidding. I don't even know what his girlfriend looks like. And if I did, I would not find her yummy. Just kidding. Just kidding. In case this is being pulled off the bird. Yeah, the bird. Hey, media matters for America. Go fuck yourself.
Now, the thing that's interesting about that, media matters
why
for
did
America.
They think? Okay, go ahead.
No, the thing that's interesting about that is that these leaks surfaced on Media Matters.
Right.
So it's almost like it's almost like he suspected he was being watched and just gave a little fuck you to the people who he suspected would have this footage. Sorry, go ahead.
Again, what part of this did they think was damaging to Tucker Carlson's reputation? I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Like this makes him look human to cool to his audience.
Yeah.
Like to the audience that he has, like that he called a girl that apparently, according to what he said, he never met, yummy. I mean, to a Fox audience, like they were going to go, oh my God, he seems to have some sexist attitudes.
Yeah, I mean it's off-putting, sure, but
it's a little creepy.
It's a little weird. Like he seems to have a little bit of a douchey sense of humor. Like even talking to the assistant there, what is this? Is this the most affirmation you've ever had? You know, a little douchebag sense of humor. You know, which a lot of people have. A lot of people in show business have that, especially people who are pampered stars, right? This is the thing that made the real headlines.
They got him. Yeah.
They got him. So this is, in fact, Russell, are you able to full screen this and read this? I should have run this by you earlier, but my eyes have been failing me. I've been squinting a lot.
Are they?
I don't know. I just, for some reason, the text, maybe it's the slides are showing up smaller on my monitor for some reason, but yeah, it's been more of a struggle to read this evening than usual. Sure.
All right. You do a better Tucker Carlson than me, so that's a shame, but all right.
Oh.
I'll just do it
a couple
straight.
of weeks ago. Here, let me give it a couple of weeks ago. I was watching video of people fighting on the street in Washington. A group of Trump guys surrounded an Antifa kid and started pounding the living shit out of him. It was 3 against 1 at least. Jumping a guy like that is dishonorable. Obviously, it's not how white men fight. That was the line they got him. It's not how white men fight.
That's where they got him.
Yet suddenly, I found myself rooting for the mob against the man, hoping they'd hit him harder, kill him. I really wanted them to hurt the kid. I could taste it. Then somewhere deep in my brain, an alarm went off. This isn't good for me. I'm becoming something I don't want to be. The Antifa creep is a human being, much as I despise what he says and does, much as I'm sure I'd hate him personally if I knew him. I shouldn't gloat. Is that it? Sorry, this is very small.
Yep.
Yeah, I shouldn't gloat over his suffering. I should be bothered by it. I should remember that somewhere, somebody probably loves this kid and would be crushed if he was killed. If I don't care about those things, if I reduce people to their politics, then how am I better than he is? What'd you think? I thought that was pretty good.
That was good. That was good.
I think I do a good Tucker. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you convinced me. I struggled through it. I got
it. That's a pretty, yeah. See, Keaton sounds just like Tucker. See?
Yeah, I can do a good Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Maybe I can take his time slot.
Nailed it.
I got the presentation down.
Nailed it. Yeah. Actually, it'll be like when they replaced Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
I buried
all the stuff about
Tucker.
sexism. Look, I confused my housemaid for my wife. That's why I touched her where I shouldn't have. I apologize for it. My wife understood.
This is the danger of playing dress up with your wife. Sometimes she dresses like the maid, and you don't know which is which.
And it was an honest mistake, and my wife understands that. Do you understand that? You should. Yeah. Do you? You should. If you don't, why not? Why don't you ask yourself that question?
The white men thing. I saw. What's her name? Emily Jasinski. I saw her trying to talk him out of that. Yeah, that's not going to work. She was trying to say he was being meta. Yeah, no. She's trying to say he's commenting on that stupid trope. Yeah, no. This is I said this a while back about Hillary Clinton talking about the deplorables, how there's just as much racism in her class, but it's coded differently. And that's what I see there. Look, at the end of the day, Tucker Carlson is a rich heir who spent a lot of his life, or basically his entire life, surrounded by old money blue bloods going to, I'm sure, the best schools among very, 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 very old money white people. And yeah, man, that's how they talk about this shit when nobody's around. Now I'm surprised because he seems like a very smart guy. I'm surprised he was dumb enough to write that down.
Yeah, to put that in the text.
But yeah, man, that's your very like old school blue blood Harvard kind of thing. Well, it's you know what it is? It's very Kipling. It's very Kipling. White man's burden. It's very that, right?
Yeah, I mean, and look, the other thing about this that I find kind of suspicious is that Tucker has said racially charged things on the air that he has survived. It seems like Fox is sort of on this campaign.
He always gave himself enough plausible deniability to get out of it, though.
Yeah, but are we really supposed to believe that of all the shit he said on the air, this text message that did not make it on the air that he said privately, are we really supposed to believe that this is largely why they shit canned him? Because
that's ridiculous.
They are on this like crusade against him right now, which is kind of weird because Tucker has, he's made some very sort of coded barbs at them, talking about how, a lot of the narratives that media drive us into are brain dead and things like that. But he has not directly called out Fox News or any of his former employers or employees there. Like, he's been pretty civil about
I think there are legal issues because technically he's still an employee.
Well, sure, but what I'm saying
you're not letting him out of his contract.
Well, sure, but they've been going after him quite hard since he left with these leaks. And so it's almost as if they are trying to paint the picture that he just became too extreme for them. He was awkward. He was sexist. He said racist things, which once again, he was fairly awkward, casually sexist and sometimes more than casually racist on the air. And they didn't really have much of an issue with that. Nor do they with most of their hosts who go there on Fox. And so, what? Now they want us to believe that this
that's basically their business model.
That's their business model, right? So what? They took a moral stand against him for a text message that no one else saw, right? I mean, this didn't even come out in court, this text message. This was just a private thing that they leaked for the purpose of, I guess, convincing the public that, I don't know, they want to be less racist than they were when he was on the air. Like, I don't buy that for a second. I think they're trying to distance themselves from him for some other reason. Could have something to do with the lawsuits that they're facing. They just paid out the Dominion suit. They have the Smartmatic suit. Smartmatic, they're being ball busters. They're saying they're not going to settle for less than Dominion got, which means you could be shelling out another $750 million, right? It's got to be something related to that, because to just start putting out leaks against this guy totally unprovoked after you fired him just seems kind of bizarre. It just seems like you're trying to convince the public that you took some moral stand when I think it's fairly obvious to most objective observers that Fox News did not do and would not do any such thing.
I think it's a few things. I think they're trying to destroy his brand ahead of him inevitably.
That's an interesting angle too. I didn't think of that.
On another platform.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, eventually, even if they do manage to keep him under contract, that contract's going to expire and he's still going to be Tucker Carlson. And you're going to have to compete with him on some other platform. So I think they're trying to undermine him because why would it? It really shows an ignorance of their own audience, though. Like the things they look. I guess him saying you didn't have that in the cut, his menopausal audience or something. So they did.
Well, there was one that just came out today that I didn't get to put in. Maybe that was one of the newer ones, because there was one that came out today where he asked if like some of the women staffers have like pillow fights or something like that. Just like, again, that weird douchey
again, that's not going to hurt him with his audience.
No, it's not. It's not catastrophic, but it's another example of like weird douchey broy humor. But look, I mean, it's not a surprise that that's his sense of humor.
He's been pissing off Tucker, and this is why so many of us on the left have had a very complicated relationship with him, because here's this guy speaking out against Ukraine and putting Jimmy Dore and Glenn Greenwald on the most watched cable news in the country, right? there was a really interesting article in Axios where a lot of Republicans would only comment anonymously about how they were celebrating that Tucker was gone because he was making it so hard for them to vote for Ukraine, which was what they really wanted to do. But
you mean for the funding of the war, for the funding of the Ukraine war? Yeah,
right. It was making it very hard for them to take those votes because Tucker kept going on TV and calling out the Ukraine war. So they were all very happy. Apparently, I didn't see the actual speech. In the article, they referenced that McCarthy, I guess, said something positive about funding Ukraine, and they said, that's partly because Tucker is gone now,
right?
So they can change gears. So it's complicated with Tucker. I mean, look, I don't want to hear that was fucking meta. Of course, that's the kind of racism someone of his class would have. Exactly that. Yeah. That's not the way that white men fight. That's exactly what you would expect from him. He was also the only voice at that level of the game speaking out against a war that could trigger a nuclear exchange. So, that text was the only missile they deployed that sank the battleship. That definitely created a lot of problems for him if he wants to come back. How does he explain that? Like, I mean, that's why I'm saying everything he said on the air that was coded racism, he always left himself wiggle room. He always did it in a way that he could always say, no, I'm not saying anything against a lot of the immigrants who come here are very hardworking people, but
fine people. I don't
they're fine.
No problem with them.
Right. He always gave himself enough plausible deniability, but you can't get out of that shit. You cannot get out of that. So yeah, man. The only path forward I see for him, if he cares, you just have to apologize, man. Like, you just have to apologize, and people are going to accept it. Will accept it. A lot of people won't, but I think the worst thing he could do would be to try to pretend it doesn't say what it says.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, and look, that's very consistent with the kind of views that he has espoused on subjects that are sort of tangentially related to that whole sort of issue when it comes to crime, even when it comes to the immigration issue, right? And, he didn't go there as directly on that, but he went pretty close. I mean, he said things to the effect of, and look, I'm not even talking about like the replacement theory stuff, because Democrats have admitted that, demographic changes are going to favor them in these border states. So like, I won't even go there with that, but like, I'm saying, like, just talking about the dirtying of America's cities, like, I mean, that's pretty close to that line right there. It's not as squarely on the head as that text, which is why it is surprising that he would just put that in writing there. But it's not inconsistent, obviously, with a lot of what he has said. And, like, one of the reasons why we've always been interested in him is because, first of all, as I wrote in my article, he's the last of his breed. He's the last truly relevant zeitgeist water cooler sort of TV host who anybody cares what they have to say.
Right.
But also, the thing that made him interesting to me is that he was this mixed bag. He was this, he combines, I think, very sensible and practical views on a lot of issues with some pretty wretched views on other issues, and we've always kind of said that, So, it is interesting to sort of ponder where he'll go from here. I do think that these texts are survivable, even that. Maybe it shouldn't be, but I think it is because his fan base is so big. And look, a lot of his fans are fucking racist too. Like, a lot of them are. You know what I mean? Like,
he made a lot of inroads with our side of the aisle, though, and the only way to get those back is to apologize.
Right. Exactly. Right. Because that takes it to a place where, like, it's not really possible to ignore that or pretend that it's something it's not. For us now, for the sort of diehard conservative base, they might not be all too troubled by that. We saw a couple people in the chat saying they weren't troubled by that, so maybe he'll have that audience still. But the thing that made him interesting to us was that he didn't just play to that audience, whereas most of the Fox News hosts do. Jesse Waters went on the air the other day and talked about how he saw illegal immigrants digging through his trash outside of his high-rise. And one of the other hosts actually asked him, how do you know they were illegal?
I'm not laughing at the people. I'm laughing at
that he would say that.
Whoa-ness
of saying that. No, but then his co-host said, how do you know they were illegal? And he said, you can tell. Right. So like, this is like, look, this stuff is fairly par for the course on Fox News. So like, how this impacts Tucker is one question, but to me, this does not get us any closer to understanding why he was fired. This gets us closer to understanding that they want to score points with the public for having taken a moral stand against this guy when clearly, number one, they did not. And also, look, I mean, number two, like I said, you still got Jesse Waters on the air saying things that are pretty much right in line with what he's saying there. So are they getting fired?
But he's not fucking up their money-making opportunities in Ukraine. That's where I was going with the Republican thing. Look, they had to hold their fire on him as long as he was on the air. Now that he's off the air, they're pleasing their Republican friends.
Right, exactly.
Right? I think that's a big part of it too. They've been holding back, and now they're like, no, don't worry, we're gonna throw the kitchen sink at him so you can have your war over there.
Right, absolutely. All right, let's take some super chats, folks. Thank you guys for chipping in here. Okay, so here we go. James Vanderzanden, thank you for the $1.99. Dems use identity to also use migrants as pawns. Well, yes, absolutely, my friend. Christian Drake, thanks for the $5. Dem use immigrants as pawns every election cycle. They have such balls to lie when they already know the truth. Well, yeah, I mean, look, that's a good point because they've been hypocritical on this issue for a long time in a number of ways, even when it comes to the issue of labor and wages, right? I mean, it's not just this. This is sort of like the NIMBY thing, just in broad daylight, but in a whole number of ways, they've tried to have it both ways with this issue. And Donald Trump was a gift to them in the sense that he spoke in such a brash way about it that it gave them the sort of distance they needed from Republicans to run on it. But obviously, when it came time to govern on the issue, not just as bad. I would argue in Biden's case, significantly worse. Tusker, white suit is at the dry cleaners. I don't know. Is that a reference to Russell's wardrobe? Or maybe to somebody else. Maybe that was to somebody else, and you just put $2 on it.
And I'm just going to say, there's a little chatter about the damn bookcase. Listen, I have had 2 votes. I can fix that.
He's getting rattled.
I can fix that. I owned 3 theaters. Do you know how much carpentry I had to do? Believe me, I can fix that in 2 minutes. But the people have spoken. They want it to stay.
They want it to stay. And now with this new camera that he's gotten, it's much more pronounced. Like that old camera with the fisheye lens, your window was in half of the frame. Now it's good. Now you're centered under the bookcase. Christian Drake, thanks for the other $20, my friend. Thank you. I work in a hospital with psych patients acting badly all the time. In my 9 years, we never choked someone to manage them. We'd be fired. It's angering how people justify a 15-minute choke because the guy was mental. It's BS. No, I think that's absolutely right.
We agree with that.
Definitely. Virtuoso. Today, Bernie Getz is an MMA enthusiast. Do you know who that is? Do you get that reference?
I do. I almost referenced that, actually. Okay, so...
I don't know the reference.
Really?
Yeah, no, I don't.
All right. So Bernie Getz was a guy who basically went full Joker / Death Wish. I think that was 1985-ish.
I never heard of this.
The guy had an illegal gun. And 3 African Americans, made him feel threatened or approached him, and he shot them. I don't think he killed all three. I think one of them was definitely killed. And I think he only got a gun charge. I don't think he got charged. I think he did not get convicted on the murder charge. And that one was, I would say, more morally complicated than this one because they actually were going to rob him. Like that came out in the trial. Like they were planning on robbing him. Remember, this is like Taxi Driver New York too. Like this was a much, much more dangerous New York than the one we live in today. So with this situation where this person was mentally ill, neglected by the system, and also you had him completely restrained, and you could have just gone and gotten the authorities. You didn't need to even hold him in a chokehold like that. I don't think it's as morally ambiguous as the Bernard Goetz case was. But I thought of that case. I didn't bring it up because I didn't want to introduce that kind of moral ambiguity into this. I think this is a little more straightforward.
All right. Mousetrap, thanks for the $4.99. Issues like this further prove that we're truly facing a uniparty. Both parties are conservative on all these issues when it comes to business. Yes, that is on the immigration issue as well. Thank you, Mousetrap. Zach Boyles, pandemic response is different from pandemic, and pandemic today is different than 4 years ago. Well, yes, I mean, I think that's true. Yes. Long story short, it's an uncomfortable truth, but there is mental health, homeless industrial complex. Schellenberger was on the Hill talking solutions and got dismissed. Yeah, you know, it's funny. I want to watch that interview because Schellenberger is an interesting guy, and I would like to watch that interview. Maybe we could cover that, even though it's happened a little while back. It might be interesting to cover that. But thank you for the donation and for reminding me of that, because I did remember he was on.
So all four survived, although Daryl Cavey, this Bernard Goetz story, in case anyone's interested, was paralyzed and suffered brain damage as a result of his injuries. And apparently this was 1984. So I almost nailed it.
There you go. If Gatorade had extreme sport, include watching TV. Interesting. All right, I don't quite get that one, but thank you, Zach. Long story short, see if you can get Curtis Lewa on the show. You know, that would actually be fun. He ran against Eric Adams.
That would be very interesting. He ran on universal health care, didn't he?
He ran on a lot of like progressive. He ran on like animal welfare and, you know, caring for the homeless. He's an interesting character. And, you know, honestly, like when people ask me, like, you know, well, who'd you watch and, you know, who inspired you to do this? Most of like who would be influences on me, I guess, are like those New York radio guys, whether it's sports talk or politics talk, because I used to drive around New York a lot and I used to listen to the radio a lot. And I remember the Curtis and Kuby show. It was a good show. It was a good show. I mean, it was not like great substance, but it was a talk show. They were fun. They had a good sense of humor. They had a good rapport. They were quick. So yeah. It would actually be a lot of fun if he would talk to us. I'm not sure he would, but that is an interesting.
He might actually. I'm going to answer this, even though it's not a super chat. All right. So best pizza in New York. It's a 2-part answer. If you want the best kind of traditional street slice, Prince Street Pizza on Prince Street in Little Italy. I would say like traditional neighborhood style slice. Best overall, the Nona slice at Bleecker Street Pizza in the Village.
Yeah, the Nona slice is excellent.
The Nona slice, it's based on the owner's grandmother from Tuscany's recipe, 2 types of homemade mozzarella, olive oil, basil, homemade sauce. Perfect slice of pizza.
No, the Nona slice is really fantastic. That was on a food tour that I did. Although I think the ownership is different there now. It's a whole different scene there. At that
same
pizzeria.
Slice, though. Yeah.
It is the same slice?
Yeah, same slice.
Same recipe and everything? Okay, interesting.
Yeah. Tastes the same.
Prince Street is phenomenal as well. I want to claim a little bit of responsibility for Prince Street Pizza having blown up the way it did, because I put that place on my food tours before it was famous. Like now you can't get into the place. Now there's no chairs inside. Now there's a line around the block.
Man,
When I went there, when I found that
I'm gonna
place, you
blow
used
up
to have
this whole
tables and
rap. I'm gonna
chairs.
blow up this whole rap.
What?
I'm gonna blow up your whole rap here, man.
Why?
All right. So this is the deal with Prince Street Pizza. So if you go around New York, you're gonna find a lot of places with the name Ray's Pizza.
No, I know. Yeah, I know this story. Yeah.
All right. So the actual original Prince Street Pizza was Ray's Pizza. That was on the same location. So I was started by a guy named Ralph Cuomo, who, like a lot of Italians, who was just a great home cook. So the pizza became famous throughout the city. So everyone started stealing the name Ray's. So why doesn't he sue? Well, because the business of the pizzeria was not really pizza. Ralph Cuomo was a soldier in the Lucchese crime family. The real business of Ray's Pizza was actually heroin distribution, which they were smuggling through the supposed bags of flour. So when Ralph Cuomo died, they called it the Pizza Connection, or when he finally got caught. Now, when he died, his family, in 2006, his family sold the building. They renamed it Prince Street Pizza, but supposedly that's the Ray's recipe. That's why it's so good.
All right. Well, that doesn't change my story, which is that when I found Prince Street Pizza, you could get in the place, and they had tables and chairs and everything. And I discovered, oh yeah, you used to be able to.
Well,
eat
but
it.
hang on, did they? Because the original Ray's had the storefront they have now, plus the storefront next door, and now they don't have that one. They just have.
I haven't been there in a while, but
they split it in half.
I haven't been there in quite some time, but I remember when I used to go there, yeah, there were tables and chairs and you could actually sit inside. And now it's just, now it's famous. Now it's one of those places where it takes forever. But yeah, fantastic stuff. All right. Zach, would anyone notice if another race wrote that, but you followed, you actually gave us a couple more. That's like what WHO did when redefining pandemic. Okay. I don't know if I followed those, Zach, but thank you. Tusker, considering how the ruling class likes to kill brown people with bombs and sanctions, I think we made it clear how the West likes to fight. Yes, white people have their ways of fighting. That's for sure. Chokeholds, right? That's one way. Web Angel, I'm black and not Tucker's base, and what I saw in that tweet was someone checking themselves in real time. Can you explain the racism in what he said? You mean in the text message? Well, he said this isn't how white men fight. That was obviously, a reference to what? Jumping somebody, a sort of cowardly sort of mob attack that he associates with non-white people.
Right.
That's how I interpret that.
It's very Kipling.
That was pretty clear.
It's very Kipling. It's this vision of, us white people, it's tough to be better than everyone else.
Right.
But it's just something we have to shoulder.
Right. Alan, thanks for the $4.99. The only two solutions to the crime wave we are being presented are police authoritarianism and left-wing do as thou wilt. Well, yeah, I mean, look, I think that's a decent point because I think what that misses is obviously, I mean, look, the missing piece of all of this is that you need a society that can hold itself up. And a society cannot hold itself up under neoliberalism. It just, it can't.
Right.
And so if you're not going to address that, then yeah, you are left with the kind of choice that you write there. I think that's true.
I will just say, as a white guy who's been jumped by white guys, white people certainly do fight.
Yeah, they do fight. Yeah. On top of that, Tucker, it's not even accurate what you said.
It's not even accurate.
Yeah. Okay, are we caught up? I think we are caught up. Perfect. All right, I lost my place a little bit there, but all right, cool. Excellent. All right. Moving right along here. Okay, so this is a story that is more a headline than a real story. But Russell, do you want to introduce this? This is the revelation that I guess post-revelation about the kind of guy Jeffrey Epstein was. Noam Chomsky still pursued a meeting or several meetings with him.
Yeah. So his date book was just released. The Wall Street Journal broke this story, and a lot of unexpected people popped up in it, like Ehud Barak, the former Prime Minister of Israel. Woody Allen had already been known, but what really shocked people was, far left intellectual icon Noam Chomsky had several meetings with Epstein. The one that's funniest is the one he had with Woody Allen. So 2 months later, Epstein planned to fly with Mr. Chomsky and his wife to have dinner with them and movie director Woody Allen and his wife, SUNY Previn, the documents show. Quote, if there was a flight, which I doubt.
I could do this. If there was a flight, which I doubt it would have been from Boston to New York, 30 minutes. I'm unaware of the principle that requires that I inform you about an evening spent with a great artist.
That's pretty good.
That's not bad.
That's pretty good. That you could do Tucker.
Got a little cast of characters.
I mean, people think I'm the voice guy, but yeah.
I have a few I could do.
Yeah, I have a few. So yeah, it's a little disappointing, right? Because you got old lefty Noam Chomsky in the end to have dinner with Woody and his stepdaughter / wife.
And I'm the one who gets fired? I get fired?
Yeah.
Noam Chomsky has dinner with Woody Allen and convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, and they come after me? I can't really get the laugh down. The laugh is hard. I gotta work on the laugh.
I mean, that's a
loud laugh.
That's a hard one for the left. I mean, it's almost.
Can you explain that? I can't.
It's almost worse that he was. I mean, it's bad with Allen, but Epstein. Come on, man. Like you know what his deal was, right? Like, what are you doing, Noam? What are you doing? I mean, I'd be very surprised if he was availing himself of Epstein's services.
Well, I think he was. I think Epstein actually hooked him up with a 51-year-old woman, actually, which is pretty scandalous.
Is that true?
No, I'm joking. That was a tweet that I put out that most people got, but other people didn't. The joke is that Chomsky's so old that it would be scandalous if he hooked up with a 51-year-old woman.
Yeah, I got that. So
you get where I'm going with that.
So look, I'll give you a fun thing, a little fun fact. So Woody Allen made a movie called Hannah and Her Sisters. Now this could be triggering for some people. I'm going to warn you. He made a movie called Hannah and Her Sisters, and there's a scene where they're having, I believe it's a Thanksgiving scene, and there are children at the table, and you'll notice one of the children is Asian. At the time, that was his stepdaughter, Sun-Yi, now his wife. So you can actually see him with her as a child if you go back and you watch Hannah and Her Sisters. It's a little disturbing.
Yeah, I never made it all the way through that movie. I was just very put off by all the Mia Farrow films. I never liked Mia Farrow as an actress, really. And so, like, I don't know, the films he made with her, I never dug those.
Yeah, those were a little later on. This is a Russ origin
He made some
story.
decent movies in that era, but just not the ones with her.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it at the time, but I was really into him at the time because my first girlfriend, her parents had like a video library back when people had those, right? The like bookshelf with all VHS tapes. And I got my film edge. I discovered art films through them. Like they had Ingmar Bergman. They had things.
Right.
I had never seen.
Bergman was a big influence on Woody Allen too. Yeah.
Right. So they had all that stuff. So I saw all of the Woody Allen movies, even the artsy ones like Stardust Memories. Like I saw them all.
Well, that was a good one. Yeah.
And that, I found it very relatable. Like the idea of this kind of like this kind of like smart ass Jew hanging around with these waspy intellectuals.
Right.
Like I was like, you know, I and that world, the way that he portrayed Manhattan was really intriguing to me, you know, growing up in the working class Queens, like the idea that, you know, for one thing, Woody had all this wealth porn, and it was, you know, it was very appealing, right? It looked like this very appealing world, especially if you're like a kid who reads a lot in this working class neighborhood where nobody does.
Right.
Like, okay, well, that's who I would be. If I get across the bridge to Manhattan, I would be I would be like that smart ass Jew with the intellectual wasps. And unfortunately, you know, that scene was almost over by the time I got there. You know, I got to Manhattan. I started getting into that scene when I was like 18, 19. And the last of that was around. Like the last of those New York intellectuals were still around. By the time I got out of college, they were gone. Like nobody talks like that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there were a lot of movies that he made at that time, around that time. I think Hannah and Her Sisters was 86. Crimes and Misdemeanors, which is one of my favorites of his. That's a brilliant movie. That was, I think, 89 or something like that.
That's later on. Yeah. That's later on. I you know, I was first exposed to, you know, the classics, Annie Hall and Stardust Memories and Manhattan, you know, and I really was very intrigued by that world there. But you know,
Murder Mystery is fun. That's a fun one. Bullets Over Broadway.
See by that time I wasn't really into him.
Well, that was like 90s. So that was when he started.
I was over him by then.
He started losing it by then a little bit, although he still made some good ones. I actually liked the musical he did, which was called Everyone Says I Love You. I actually liked that one. I actually thought that was quite good.
I didn't actually see it, but he was a big influence on me as a teenager.
Yeah, for sure. And yes, Sleeper is the one where I think he pretended to be a robot. That's what.
Yes, Sleeper. Sleeper. That was his sci-fi movie. Well, you had the funny ones. You had Sleeper and Take the Money and Run, and Bananas.
Bananas.
And basically, then once he made Annie Hall, that was where he started getting into trying to be an art filmmaker. Right. Although I will say now, you go back and you watch Annie Hall, and there's still some great stuff in it, but it's so fucking misogynistic. And anybody who watches the show, you know I'm not hypersensitive to these things. The scene where he first goes home with her after they played tennis doubles and he first goes to her apartment, it's uncomfortable. It's actually uncomfortable to watch now. I remember when I watched it as a teenager, I thought he was so cool. And now just the way he talks to her, it's so disgustingly condescending. You know, she shows that she has a Sylvia Plath book, and he goes, "Oh yes, Sylvia Plath, a great poet whose tragic suicide was misinterpreted as romantic by the college girl mentality." Like, he's such a fucking asshole when you watch it. Like, you're like, God, I can't believe I ever thought he came off well in this movie. You know? But then, you know what redeems it? In the end, he kind of admits he's a douchebag.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Lost her
Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
And that kind of does redeem the movie.
Yeah.
But some of those scenes, if you go back and watch it and you haven't seen it in a long time, you're going to be surprised at what a horrible creep his character is if you watch it now.
Got a lot of people talking about Woody Allen in the chat. A lot of Woody Allen fans in the chat. Who knew? All right. Excellent.
No, listen. The New York I first discovered as a teenager was a New York where literally I was at a dinner and a woman really said this. Well, now we're all living in the post-Nietzschean vacuum, and none of us knows what to do. You know? Like, those people really existed.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the thing about his movies is that, yeah, I mean, if you spent enough time in New York, you will have encountered a lot of those same exact people.
Back then, but nobody reads to that level today. Like back then, if you were going to be like a New York creative person, you were expected to be able to speak knowledgeably about Tolstoy and Kafka.
Right.
Sartre. It came with the territory. If you were going to be a painter, a writer, an artist, or you know, to be taken seriously amongst sophisticates, you were expected to know those things, and that's gone. That's gone.
All right. So we got 2 more segments for you tonight. Like I said, folks, we said this would be a long one. And considering the amount of material we've covered, I think it's moving along actually fairly well. But yesterday was World Press Freedom Day. That's right, everybody. Press Freedom Day. And former presidents, Barack Obama, submitted a video announcement to Columbia Journalism School's Fault Lines Democracy Conference. Again, this is a guy who prosecuted more whistleblowers under the Espionage Act than any administration prior or since. And so here he is on World Press Freedom Day talking to Columbia journalism students. This is a snippet of what he had to say.
Journalists have always been on the front lines of the struggle for democracy, and some of you have the scars to prove it. And that's why it's so important to find creative ways to reinvigorate quality journalism. It's why we need to keep standing up for the rights of journalists around the world, many who are facing increasing threats and challenges just trying to do their jobs. So what does all this mean for us? As a private citizen, although one that can still get a fair amount of attention, I plan to keep shining a light on the biggest challenges that democracy faces. That includes revitalizing our political institutions, coming up with more inclusive and sustainable models of capitalism. And
more inclusive models of capitalism. Well, one thing I got to say about Barack Obama is his brand of capitalism was pretty much as inclusive as it gets. I mean, when you allow the Wall Street hucksters and frauds to basically ruin the entire global economy through fraudulent trading of junk mortgage asset bonds and those mortgage asset packages, and you don't prosecute them. I mean, nothing says inclusivity like that, right? I mean, because it's a big tent, right? It's including them. You're saying, look, some people can make an honest living, and some people can artificially inflate mortgage asset packages and buy and sell them using fraudulent information. And that's okay too. That's okay too. That's what inclusive capitalism is all about. So I think, I don't know what he wants. I mean, I think his brand is as inclusive as it gets.
Well, Thomas Frank, I would recommend anybody look up this video, or we can put it in. I'll send you the link so you can put it in the description. Thomas Frank did this great interview with a French magazine. I believe the clip on YouTube is called Why Hillary Lost or something. And it's Thomas Frank. And he says, if you look at Obama, you look at the people, the administration, there were all these people from Harvard and Yale. And on the one hand, okay, you want smart people in the government. But on the other hand, it's very dangerous because they're going to look at their friends over at financial services at Goldman who went to MIT, and they're going to say, well, they didn't mean to do it. They didn't mean to destroy the global economy. They just, they're good guys. And, and it's so true. I actually, in the 2016 election, one of my very regular Hillbot debate partners was somebody from a very wealthy family. Like she had pictures of herself with Hillary, like from that kind of a family. Right. And so people that she knew are actually at that level of financial services where they knew people who were questioned by the Justice Department, who were on TV, being perp-wogged during all of this. And I actually spoke to one of them, and it really gives you insight into this aristocracy because there was no deception here. The person was telling me, and it was really wrong because they're really good guys. These guys are really good guys. Like literally said that to me about the people who destroy. I said to clarify, I was like, hang on, man, you're talking about, people who were on TV for the financial crisis.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, they're really good guys.
Yeah.
You know, really, like, they didn't do anything wrong. This is how they look at things, man, because those are their friends. Those are literally their friends.
Of course.
Those are literally people they went to school with. And if they didn't directly go to school with them, they're not more than 2 or 3 degrees of separation
Right.
away from all of these people.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
one big club and you ain't in it.
You ain't in it. Well, he gets into the sort of specifics when it comes to the future of media. Talk about a big club. Don't forget, this is Columbia School of
Creating a stronger democratic culture, but it also means creating an information environment that reinforces rather than erodes our democracy. One in which
an information environment that enforces rather than erodes our democracy. Now, if you listen to the wordplay here, because what he goes on to talk about is fairly predictable, but I just like the Orwellian framing of this as we need to reinforce democracy through what? Through conformity is really what his main point is, as you'll see here. Whereas democracy ought to be about, like, actual democracy in practice is intrinsically the inclusion of all sorts of voices that can be, yes, at odds with each other to the point where it appears polarizing. But he decries polarization later in this as well.
truth matters, one in which we are able to distinguish between fact and opinion, one in which we're able to tell a common story and not just a bunch of separate stories that reinforce our biases and our prejudices.
Okay, so this is more wordplay that I think we have to sort of pick apart here. It's not that people can't discern fact from opinion. People are able to determine whether something is presented as objective reporting or whether it is perspective. What they really have a problem with is certain people's opinions. Like, that's the actual problem that they have. It's not that people are misconstruing what Tucker says as fact. No, Tucker is giving a sort of editorial. That's the show.
Right.
It's that they just consider opinions themselves out of bounds.
Well, it's not only that. I mean, it's the blurring between opinion and straight news. I mean, there's the line is gone, and this is something Taibbi always harps on, that the news and the problems were there before this, but he points out kind of the final crossing of the Rubicon away from credibility or any.
Right. So what you're talking about, just because it could be confusing for some who didn't quite follow that, because what you're talking about when you talk about the blurring of opinion and news, you're talking about people who present themselves as objective news people.
Right.
Their coverage becomes so biased that that's sort of, you're getting an opinion show.
Yeah, I mean, it's not news anymore. And Taibbi,
no, sorry, I just wanted to wanted to make
and
sure.
Taibbi really points out that the moment they really crossed the Rubicon away from any ability to win public trust is when they decided that Donald Trump was such a unique evil that they no longer had to cover news with any pretense of objectivity.
Right.
That they could just go after him as their mission, right? Because you're fighting Hitler. You're fighting Hitler, right? You don't want to be playing by these rules, right? But that was it. Everything that happened after that showed you exactly why there was supposed to be this bright line in the sand. As much as I'm not saying the news business was perfect before, but they did have a certain ideal of how you're supposed to report. And if you look at all of the things that they got wrong about the schmaxine and about the virus of unknown origin, all the things you couldn't talk about, the lab leak, all of this is partly the result of them deciding that they have an ideological mission, right? That it's their job to decide what misinformation is, what permissible information is. You know, we're having Norm Finkelstein on the show on Sunday, and I'm reading his book right now to prepare for it. And he lays all that out in a way that's very accessible. I was honestly, when I picked up a book by an academic, you know how that can go.
No, but he's pretty plain spoken. I mean,
he's very plain
he
spoken.
speaks like one of us,
Yeah, it's very readable. It's very engaging. And, he just lays out all of the problems with the idea that you're going to decide which speech is permissible, right? I mean, sometimes people who are absolutely evil say something that's true. So that's not a basis for banning speech. You think it's misinformation? Well, maybe you're wrong. Right? Like, the news was supposed to just report. That was the idea. And they drifted and drifted and drifted away from that until Breaking Points actually did something on this the other day. I think there was a new poll where now it's like 80% of the public doesn't trust the press. I mean, that's just not sustainable. That's just not sustainable to have a news industry that, I mean, who trusts it anymore? Like, who's still invested in it? I mean, just a small slice of PMCs in the burbs. Is that it?
Well, yeah, it's PMCs in the burbs but that's largely a function of who gets funneled into that whole world in terms of who creates the content. And this is why, this video here that he's talking to Ivy Leaguers who are going to go into journalism. Journalism didn't used to be composed of such an elite pool of applicants, right? It was a more commoner's job. All right, here we go.
These are areas where we're going to have to do better for our democracy to stay strong. And you are going to be on the front lines of making that happen.
You, the Columbia journalism students, you are going to be on the front lines of strengthening our democracy through truth and objectivity in journalism.
I want to challenge all of you to think about how you can make a difference, both individually and collectively, to the cause, not of any particular politics or political party, but to the cause of facts and accuracy and truth and credibility. And that includes...
You mean like Julian Assange?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Julian Assange, who never published anything that was proven to be false.
Right. That was nothing. Right, an absolute perfect record.
All of you who are students, you're going to be shaping the future of journalism and the media. And there are going to be times where business models and technologies are making it tougher for you to do your job. There are going to be moments in which it feels like the only way to get attention is to try to engage in the sort of opinion journalism that gets people angry and riled up and resentful, or just...
See, but look, you're either for democracy or you're not. If you're for democracy, then there's nothing really wrong with getting people angry and riled up or even resentful if they are expressing their opinions. Now, if people are lying, like, I'm not talking about the real, the InfoWars outlets and stuff like that. Like that's of a different category. But if you're putting out accurate information with a certain bent, a certain sort of editorial bent that is causing polarization, that is causing resentment and anger, then is that resentment and anger not in some way, if not justified, can it at least not be explained as a function of democracy at work? Like, why is material that makes people angry, why is that out of bounds? Because what he's saying, this is ultimately an argument against democracy. That's the irony of this. It's like, if you're for democracy, then you have to be okay with people getting riled up. You have to be comfortable with that. But
but it's all just lies and platitudes. Like, they don't care about people getting angry as long as it's on their behalf. Like, they don't give a shit about that. This is all just nonsense. It's all nonsense. I'm watching this and I'm saying, God, man, I remember when you were a person who would have taken this seriously. That's how I feel watching this. Like, wow. Because I get it. Like, I understand how you fall down that rabbit hole. And when you talk to libs, it's very clear that their brains have been massaged by this kind of language. And look, when you're in that bubble, you don't notice that he's not saying anything. He's not saying anything. It's a lot of fucking platitudes that are meant to make you feel like if you align with these ideas, you're one of the good people and you're one of the smart people, which is something that people who are attracted to the Democratic brand tend to be very invested in. You'll notice when you debate them, they'll almost always go almost immediately to intelligence, right? Even if you clearly are intelligent, they'll try to denigrate your intelligence. They'll go right to that. That's not like where they go after a while. It's right away.
Absolutely.
Creates controversy and gets attention and hot takes and clickbait. The problem is if that's all we're doing, then it's going to be harder and harder for us to determine and distinguish between truth and fiction. It's going to be harder for us to be able to have reasonable debates in the marketplace of ideas. It's going to be a lot easier for those who want to polarize us and break us apart. And it's going to be more difficult for us to self-govern.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah, and then the libs watch this and they go, you see, this is why, they're reasonable Republicans that, I don't agree with a lot of what they say about a lot of things, but you can, it's okay. You need, Nancy Pelosi even said it. You need a strong Republican Party. I'm for that. I'm for that. But these MAGA people, these Bernie people, that's what that speaks to, man. And that's who that speaks to, I mean, if you notice when you talk to people who really buy into this shit, man, they're very damaged, they're very needy, they're very insecure, they're very self-hating. And all of this acts as a bomb to those feelings, right? Like it's like a cult. Like parrot all of this and you're one of the good and smart people if you talk like this. If you watch The West Wing and you consider that an ideal vision of how politics should work, you're one of the smart ones. You're one of the culturally sophisticated ones.
Yeah, I mean, and ultimately, like, what could be more anti-democratic than that, right? I mean, if you believe in democracy, then you really need to believe in an open forum where, yes, angry people get to be angry. Well, resentful people get to be resentful.
They don't mind anger on their behalf. Glenn Greenwald just had a great segment.
No, but it's a kind of sneering. It's that sneering, contemptuous, sort of elitist, anger that the masses will not cooperate and conform.
Yes.
It's not actual like radical anger, right? It's not it's not populist ire and rage. It's like frustration. Right.
Well, it's that
can't wise up. Right.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's why Bernie's followers
exactly
the same category as Trump's, right? Because it's all out of bounds. That's what Frank gets into in The People Know and the history of how they've characterized populism. It's always been like that. They've always dismissed any kind of real people-powered democratic movement as like the morons. The morons trying to run the government. They've always presented it as, I mean, it's interesting because it seems like something that would be a modern take, but no, that's a very old take. You're to leave the elites alone. Fight. You should vote between this elite and that elite. That's it. Don't try to actually take charge. Sit down, son. You don't understand this stuff. That's always been their attitude.
Right. Absolutely. All right, one more segment, right? That's it. Wow, what a show! What a show! What a program!
Really big show tonight. We are going to have Keaton Weiss with his Tucker Carlson impersonation.
Doing impressions tonight.
We're doing impressions.
And yes, Norm Finkelstein on Sunday. Everybody be here for that. That should be a lot of fun.
We're both me and Keaton are both going to impersonate him back at him.
Exactly. I won't debut that impression until after Sunday, so that we don't, so that he doesn't cancel on us in case he sees us. Yeah. But I think I could do a pretty good Norm Finkelstein maybe after.
I think I mean, it's in our blood. We could definitely do it.
In fact, I'm pretty sure I could do it. I've
Got a very
already,
distinct voice.
the wheels are already flowing. Yeah. Not only does he have a distinct voice, but he's very distinct in terms of like what he says and how he says it, his rhythm of speech.
Right. Yes. That's what
The way he will almost intentionally mispronounce certain people's names. I feel like he does it just to dig at them a little bit. Like he would call Mehdi Hassan Mehdi. He would refer to him as Mehdi, which his name is not Mehdi. Nobody calls him Mehdi, but he kept calling him Mehdi in the interview. I was tempted to do the impression just now, actually thinking about Mehdi, but
hold back. Hold back. Wait to premiere it.
Also, I don't want to get a reputation as the resident impressionist because generally speaking, that is your role. I just have a few characters who I could do. Bloomberg, I could do. Chomsky, I never tried before. I just got to try that on a whim, but that went over well, so I'll add that to my roster. Tucker, I always figured I could nail fairly good. Anyway, all right, folks. Last segment of the evening. Early Wednesday morning, this was about 2 a.m. Moscow time, a Kremlin building was hit by 2 aerial drones, and we actually have footage of the drone hitting one of the Kremlin buildings. This is from Wednesday in the wee hours of the morning. Oh! That was my sound effect added, but that is actual real footage.
That wasn't the CIA, said it?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, new evidence has emerged that Andrew Dice Clay is responsible for it, as you can see. Oh! Wasn't very subtle about that. But that was actually real footage with my sound added. But the whole thing's not a joke. That was actually real video. Now, the Kremlin has said no one was injured or killed. They added in their statement, "We view these actions as a planned terrorist attack and an assassination attempt." And they also said, undoubtedly, such decisions, the definition of goals, the definition of means, all of this is dictated to Kiev from Washington. So they are not only accusing the Ukrainians of doing this, they are obviously saying pretty plainly that they think that we had a hand in it as well. Now, Volodymyr Zelensky denied Ukrainian involvement. He insisted, quote, "We don't attack Putin or Moscow. We fight on our territory." Now, as a sort of retaliation, as a countermeasure, Kiev was attacked shortly after these drones hit the Kremlin. And today, Zelensky made a surprise trip to The Hague, where he delivered a speech entitled "No Peace Without Justice for Ukraine." And in it, he called for the International Criminal Court to bring Putin to justice for his crimes against his country. We'll hear.
Well, that's realistic.
Well, this is, this is what we're going to get into. Let me just play the last moment of this.
See different.
Oops, sorry.
About these things that I will speak today. Of course, we all want to see different Vladimir here in The Hague.
That joke kind of fell flat, but he made clear we want to see a different Vladimir here in The Hague.
Sentenced for these criminal actions right here in the capital of the international law. And I'm sure we will see that happen when we win. And we will win. And
after we capture Moose and Squirrel.
Battlefield, not just against this aggression.
This guy, he's like a Mad TV version of Borat. Like if Mad TV casts their own Borat, like the kind of inferior knockoff comedy version of Borat, that's what he strikes me as. There's nothing to play there, really. Just a soundbite. Obviously, we wish a different Vladimir were here. Okay, so look. Russia saying Ukraine did it. Ukraine saying they didn't do it. Obviously, the United States denies we had any hand in it or that Ukraine did it. We're calling this a false flag. You know what? I would even say, like, look, whatever the truth of this is, I don't think it's beyond the Russians to make a false claim that they could then use as justification to ramp up their actions in Kiev. But whatever it is, this is clearly a dramatic escalation.
My question would be, do they really need an excuse? I mean, they're already
Well, that's
in
the
there.
thing.
Like,
That was
why
what I was
would
going to
they
get to.
need that?
Right.
Like, why?
Right. It's like the war is already very, very popular inside Russia. And so I don't think they would need or want an excuse. So that complicates that narrative. At the end of the day, I don't think it's really possible to know one way or another. However, the real big takeaway here is not only that this is a dramatic sort of escalation, but that now it seems undeniable to any party that regime change in Russia is the goal. Like, and that's always been something that no one wanted to admit. No, we're not trying to take Putin out of power. No. Right. We just want him to back off Ukraine. Well, now it seems impossible to make that argument. Right. Whether the drone was a Ukrainian drone or not, the fact that, he is now calling for, and obviously, yes, they issued the arrest warrants. Okay, fine. But now you have Zelensky himself going and saying, yeah, we want to see him tried here. Like, this is very clearly a shifting of the goalposts. Now Ukraine's talking about they want Crimea back. Now they're going to attack that bridge that was blown up earlier on in the war. And now they are making pretty open calls for regime change in Russia, which is not just so this is not just an escalation of violence. This is an escalation of aims that is going really one way, the wrong way. And Greenwald made a good point about this last night. He said, in the 1950s, a nuclear threat actually registered with people as a threat. We had duck and cover drills. Like, people were actually afraid of this. This wasn't just an abstraction. Whereas now it is. And now it seems like, we're just going to sleepwalk into this.
Right. Well, and that's partly because we do not have a free press doing its job, relating back to the previous segment. Speaking of Greenwald, he did a segment where Psaki, who's now working for MSNBC, and Simone Sanders, who's also now working for MSNBC, had a delightful chat in which Psaki talked about what great partners the press had been.
Yes, I saw that.
When she was in the White House, they were partners. Like, what kind of a press would a press secretary feel had been good partners with the administration? That's not their job to be partners. It's their job to be antagonists. So this is part of it. Look, government's gonna government, and certainly the arms manufacturers aren't going to tell you the truth. It's the job of the press to be ringing the alarms and saying, hey, this is extremely dangerous situation. World War III could erupt. And is this something we really want to do? And besides that, they could be giving some coverage to Cy Hirsch's report about $400 million disappearing into the most corrupt country in Europe. And I believe it was CBS that actually tried to do something about, it tried to do a segment about weapons getting sold on the black market, and it got pulled. It got pulled off the air. Our people will know. Tell us in the chat. I think it was CBS.
Well, the segment we did on this, which included the Cy Hirsch piece, but also just included footage of these sort of, private investment people just going up on stage and saying, hey, there's a lot of money to be made in the reconstruction of Ukraine. I mean, we're doling out contracts to BlackRock. One of the executives at Citigroup was at that meeting. Like, we are talking about the kind of investments, meaning contracts for these corporations, that probably amount to sums of money that are probably larger than the Ukrainian GDP before the war. Like we're talking about building up. We're not just building up Ukraine again. We are building, as Dmitry Olenyk, I think his last name was. We're talking about building up a completely different country, a fully modernized, fully integrated into the Western world. We're talking about just like building up a sort of Disneyfied Ukraine. And so like the money that whatever Zelensky was like skimming, I mean, yeah, that's obviously a scandal if it's true, but that's nothing. That ain't even the tip of the iceberg compared to the kind of money.
Welcome to mail order bride land.
You're right, exactly. But that's small potatoes. That's nothing compared to the money they're going to be giving out to Western and American corporations.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is why the whole moral posturing is so fucking sickening. We know that Boris Johnson went to Ukraine, proposed peace. Zelensky was ready to go along. Putin was ready to listen. And he was told, no peace. We're not going to make peace because this is the big game of risk we decided to play with the lives of everybody on the planet. Our arms manufacturers are making a lot of money. We know history. We know rise, level off, fall. We're trying to maintain our hegemony by draining a strategic rival. It's, of course, backfiring with the predictable de-dollarization. Savvy actually just did something on that. And it's bringing China and Russia closer. They historically have a lot of suspicion and antagonism towards each other, but now you've made them set that aside. And you've brought them together in a block against us. And when you talk about the Ukrainian lives being lost, it's just disgusting because these people could give a fuck about Ukrainian lives. They're using Ukrainian lives as cannon fodder
of course, yeah.
in this game of realpolitik that they're playing badly, I might add.
All right, let's take a couple of callers here. I'm going to let you guys both in at the same time here. Virtuoso, you're on. If you want to talk, Tusker, you're on. What's up, everybody?
Hey, what's up?
What's going on? What's on your minds?
Well, I didn't know you could pack a drone with like Roman candles. I mean, that's got to be one of the like flimsiest assassination attempts I've ever seen.
This is gonna be a sound drop. I'm gonna make a sound drop out of this. Oh!
Yeah.
What's up, Tusker?
I mean, I think what I was seeing is that the drone was shot down. So I think that's part of it that explodes. Not.
Yeah, it was intercepted. Yeah.
Right.
They were both intercepted.
That's the reason why it because I have seen people being like, "What the fuck? Like, it's not going to penetrate a building." Well, no, it was interdicted.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a mystery. Like, I don't claim it's not a mystery. Like, I couldn't tell you exactly how that went down. I don't really have a guess. But I also don't really care.
I don't think it's a false flag because there's nothing to be gained from it. They're already at war. If that had happened before they went to war with Ukraine.
Well, sure, of course. Maybe. And Putin's, I mean, the favorability numbers for Putin are strong, and they are largely supportive of the war effort. So what would you need a false flag for?
Right. What would you need? And also, look, Zelensky is someone who tried to bait us into World War III when that what was it, a missile dropped into Poland.
Mm-hmm.
And he immediately tried to see, I told you we need to. So this fucking scumbag is dangerous. I've been saying that for a long time. Like, listening to him, if you listen to him, he wants World War III. And look, on some level, you can't blame him. It's his country. So you're going to try to get everybody involved to defend your country. But why are we listening to that? Because the people who really run things, it's in their interests. And they're using him as a puppet too. Yeah, go out there, stir shit up so we can justify prolonging this war.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
exactly
So
right. Go ahead, Virtuoso.
yeah. So with that said, yeah. Hey, thanks, Lester. With that said, would it be safe to call this Ukraine war efforts, the funding, the military weapon armory to, between these two countries pipeline, a money pit, Um, because I gotta say, man, Zelensky is like sales pitches now that he's selling Ukraine up for sale, like BlackRock to come in, all these other,
Well, yeah, look,
business.
the real money has not been spent yet. Like we're just talking about what we've sent out the door in terms of weapons and aid. That's nothing compared to the money that we're going to pour into
reconstruction,
the rebuilding.
Yeah.
Right.
So the real money has not gone out the door yet. That gives you an idea of the just the size and scope of what you're actually talking about there.
Yeah. I mean that's exactly right.
And in the most corrupt nation in Europe, how much of that money is going to disappear into the pockets of Zelensky and his generals, as apparently a lot of this money already has.
Yeah. And apparently, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm a boxing fan, and I've heard that Zelensky has been having kind of a beef with I think Vitaly Klitschko. I think it was the mayor of Kiev, if I'm not mistaken.
Klitschko, yeah, he's something in Kiev. I can't remember exactly which what.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't heard about that. But like I said, all of that government grift really pales in comparison to just the out in the open business that is being done. I mean, it's just business. Like you had Gina Raimondo go up there and say, yeah, no, the CEOs are excited to help.
Yeah, they're excited to help.
They're going to get billions and billions of dollars in contracts from us to help rebuild. Like it's all out in the open. Like this is what I mean. Like when you talk, when people accuse, people like us of being like, conspiratorial in our thinking and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, there are certain maybe conspiracies that we tend to give more credence to than, say, a more mainstream outlet or things like that. But most of what we're talking about is not even theory at all. I mean, it's fact. You had Citigroup executives, BlackRock advisors, and the U.S. Commerce Secretary share a stage with the governor of the National Bank of Ukraine saying, here's the plan. This is going to be a very long, large, and expensive process, and we are going to give everyone a piece of the action. They said it on the stage, right? So there's nothing conspiratorial about this. There's nothing controversial about it. It's public record at this point.
Yeah, I saw that headline. Jan Clements said, didn't Zelensky call the Murdochs? I saw that supposedly he leaned on them about Tucker.
You bring me the head of Tucker Carlson.
You must get him off the air. He is ruining whole plan.
Yeah. I mean, who knows?
Cy Hirsch old. No one will question heart attack.
Yeah. I mean, look, honestly, with the Tucker stuff, I think it's all just cover your ass stuff. Maybe 90% that, and maybe 10% ego, if Tucker rubbed Murdoch the wrong way. I don't think he's silenced for being an anti-war voice. Look, fuck, they go where the money is, man. They go where the money is. That guy was huge for them. Was absolutely massive for them. And gave them sort of cover when people accused them of being simply a right-wing hack network, because we would always defend Fox as like, hey, you have this guy on there who's at least interesting and unpredictable and is not towing a party line all the time, which is more than you could say for MSNBC. So, what other incentive would they have to get rid of him unless it's a cover your ass move because they're about to lose another $800 billion, like that, $800 million. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because I kind of look at him as dead weight, with that fucking fine they have to put to Dominion. I just think that Tucker is, he is a reactionary that does quite agree with his politics, but he does drop a few gems here and there, diamonds in the rough. But these are things that Jimmy Dore has been saying for quite some time, and he's platforming them, and that's something that that is invaluable. I just look at it as that. Despite being the prick that he is, the privileged prick that he is.
Well, look, I mean, that's why it's a zeitgeist show. Like, the stuff he was saying is stuff that most people found to be reasonable, right? Like, or at least most people who watch TV news, right? I mean, you have people who just absorb the sort of government line just unquestioningly, who aren't really tuned into what's going on. They're the kind of people who would like put the support your troops bumper sticker on the back of their car after, World Trade Center. All right, this is something we have to do. Fine.
Right.
In terms of people who actually consume that stuff, his positions were somewhat heterodox, and a lot of people really thought that they made sense, right? And so that's how you get to be a zeitgeist show. Same thing with Rogan.
Did you put that up, Keaton?
Did I put what up? I didn't put nothing
Canadian?
Up. No, I didn't put anything up. Maybe I did by accident.
Yeah, that was. I don't know why that happened. I didn't put it up, and I would have been very surprised if you put that on screen.
Yeah, the way you guys been talking about Tucker, I feel like I missed out on his show, because like I really had no interest in cable news. I just
go back and watch it on YouTube.
Go back, go back. And watch.
I hope it's archived.
The best of like Tucker.
Just like RT. I hope so.
Virtuoso. I would suggest that you specifically check out like his 16-minute segment where he exposes AOC better than I've seen almost any leftist expose AOC.
How about this, Virtuoso? I can make you some Tucker videos. I'll have the backdrop. I'll do my impression. I'll do my hair. I'll just make you an archive of Tucker material that you can enjoy.
All right. Super chat. Zelensky was.
By the way, that's a great impression. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Zelensky was shook during his denial of Ukraine's involvement. I don't know. He's a pretty cool cucumber, that guy, man. He's got corruption in his blood, I think.
I mean, their theory of this might be that they need reinforcements, because they're not going to be able, like, we've already heard reports that both the US and Ukraine are sort of bearish on whatever spring offensive they're going to launch, right? I think they are understanding that like they're not going to be able to do it, which I mean, this was so obvious from day one. Like, it was so obvious that like you have to be how fucking stupid you have to be to think that with whatever amount of money we're sending them, that they're going to be able to defeat the Russian army, was just absolutely ludicrous. Of course, this was either going to de-escalate or it was going to go global. Those were the only two possibilities from minute one. Any idiot could have told you that. And yet you had people in this country, with the pins and this, and no, they're fighting the good fight and they're going to win. They're not going to win. So, I mean, it's just like, I don't know.
But the entire point, if I can just, because I was trying to talk about the money pit like a little while ago. Like, no, it's not a money pit. Whose money pit? This has always been the game plan. What this has been is this has just been a way to irritate Russia. Yeah, they're hoping they can get a little bit of regime change out of it. They really did think that their economic war would be able to, because their goal's China. China's the goal. China's the economic power. They only care about hegemony. Russia's not going to disrupt their hegemony. Russia can disrupt regional hegemony, but not global hegemony like China can. And what's the entire thing? China needs, it's a gas importer from Russia. So that was the whole entire plan. China won't be able to fight back if they don't have the energy resources to do so from Russia. So the entire point was hopefully to weaken Russia, to somehow get some control over like regime change or whatever, to somehow make it to where China would be weakened whenever we launched a war with them over Taiwan. That's the entire point. But what they didn't count for is that Russia, while they might have sold off some of their industry and stuff like that, their military industry is still state controlled. They don't have to go and bargain for contracts. They don't have to fight with a bunch of CEOs. That they don't care if an F-35 is worth $35 million and just crashes. They don't care. They're actually going to produce military.
All right, and listen, I don't want to trigger our China people because I think overall this is positive. I have been saying for literally decades, look, eventually China will catch up to our biomedical technology, right? They're going to have equal ability to manipulate genetics, right? Now, when you have that kind of technology in a country with absolutely no constitution, no tradition of human rights, when World War III breaks out, they're going to reveal their Chimera program, and we're going to be fighting winged bat soldiers. You try fighting the winged bat soldiers, you are screwed, man. You are screwed. I'm convinced there's an underground cavern where they have, lion people and all kinds of stuff they've been making down there.
I mean, maybe perhaps as well. I mean,
I'll be honest.
Oh my God, I'm going to be getting it in the comment section for a week for that one.
All right, listen, I'll be very honest with everyone in the audience.
You're gonna get it for me after this.
I'll be very, very honest with everyone in the audience. I'm just too tired to carry on a conversation about that.
I know. Oh my God.
I'll be totally straight with you. I'll be totally straight with you. It's 11:30, and I don't have it in me for that. So
I'm not kidding. I've been saying this for a very long time.
I know you have. That's why I'm not kidding either. I'm too tired. Too late. Too late. It's 11:30. I'm not getting into that now. Are you nuts? Are you insane? We'll talk about that with Norm Finkelstein. Why don't you bring that up? Maybe your first question.
Oh my God!
Do you believe that China has a Chimera program in which they are running a veritable island of Dr. Moreau under Shanghai?
I'm just like, oh God! Sometimes I wish I had a male's voice because I know like how he sounds, and it's just like the way he's like, "Do you believe?" Like he always just like drags like everything out. It's just sort of like a white Jewish Bill Cosby.
Piece of shit.
You can already. Well, that's it. Now we don't have them for some.
Oh, we got it.
I thought you were going to hold back on that.
Oh.
That was an affectionate character. It's an affectionate character.
I thought we were going to save the impression for the post show, but now that you brought it here, fuck it.
Got it. He'll still come on. He ain't
gonna watch this anyway. You think he's gonna watch?
He's got thick skin. I think.
No, look, like
he's got thick skin.
If I can be honest, he came and did an interview with one of my party's organizations, and it was only in an audience of 30 people. And he spent the first 15 minutes just clowning on us, just literally just all the people in the profile. He was just screwing with us.
Oh no, yeah, he's a rabble rouser. Yeah.
Yeah, Norm is such just he's so funny. He won't mind at all. A little.
He's a trip. He's
That's.
I'm enjoying his book. It's good.
Oh, it's good. Yeah, it's good. I've been reading it too.
I'm really looking forward to the interview.
Did you get it on
I will say
What was that?
No, I was just going to say that. I will say that from judging from his appearances in bad faith, I thought Norm would do whippets in between his takes. You ever notice that? There would be a deep change in his voice. You should go back and listen to it. I don't know if I'm tripping or not.
I didn't listen to the whole bad faith one. I listened to his interview. His interview on Crystal and Kyle was hilarious. I love that one. Just because Kyle started to give him some of the woke lib bullshit, and he just, was pretty good to swat that down. But he was nice. I mean, that's the thing about Norm is it seems to be he is a he's a rabble rouser, but he seems like a nice person. He's not a mean person. He seems like a nice, he's like the left. I mean, he's like what I'm gonna be when I'm his age. Yeah,
I think we're gonna get on famously. No, you put it very well. The interview is going to be 3 generations of the same person.
Yeah, 3 generations of the same person. Like I said, it was good.
You guys are both going to need to do like a coffee test, because from the way that you two guys can ramble, and with all your powers combined, you're looking at like a 5-hour show. So
we'll see.
We'll have to order a cheesecake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. I think that is our show for this evening. Oh, let's take some super chats. We got some super chats we got to get to. Sorry. Red Z, keep your head down. Do no good. It'll burn you. Thank you, Red Z.
Is that a Def Leppard lyric?
Yeah, I don't know. It's another cryptic one. Noam literally argued to let people starve. Yeah, he was pretty draconian when it came to the mandates and things like that. I understand what you're saying there, Zach. What can we say? He's talking about Noam, not Norm, by the way. What can we say? We've seen like mouthy Jews. Yeah, there you go.
Who's the we?
The audience.
The audience.
You that was back when I was like, oh look, we have Woody Allen fans, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I guess that makes sense that our audience would.
Yeah, I know. Like whenever you take super chats relatively close to the time period that they're sent, they seem to have more context.
Yes.
Well, listen.
You're like, I don't understand what that means.
Is that a note? Are you giving us notes?
That was an hour and a half ago. I'm not surprised.
Right. While listening to Obama, I was waiting for Jose Vega to storm the set. Yeah, that would have been good. Jose needs to start doing some of these.
That would be his Zeppelin 4.
Yeah. All right. I don't know what that one is, Zach. I'm sorry if I missed one of yours, but thank you. Janice or Janice Anderson. Sorry. He's using coded language to go after indie journalists like you, RBN, HLM. I don't know what BAP is, but yeah, no, look, I think that Obama stuff, yes, I think it was coded language to say that, we need to reaffirm establishment media as the dominant source of not only information, but of perspective. Yes. Right. So absolutely.
And he specifically said, we need journalists to go in there and create clickbait titles. We need journalists to that's basically what he was saying. He said, we need you guys, this new generation of journalists, we need you to go in there and create more divide and rule.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that I found reassuring and sort of comforting in a way, when we interviewed Taibbi, and he said that actually it's good to sell your story. Like, you have to sell your story. If you think your story is important, you actually owe it to yourself and the community to sell it. He says there's like a Sturm und Drang sort of quality to this, where you have to go out there and make a big deal out of what you're saying. So when we talk about clickbait, I mean, part of doing the stuff is getting people to read the stuff or watch the stuff or listen to it. Like that's part of doing it. Now, you don't do it in a deceptive way. There are a lot of creators who do it in a dishonest way.
Well, that's what Obama wants.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we don't misrepresent anything we say. But no, you gotta play it up. Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt. All right. Sylvia Plath was a terrible cook. All right, everybody.
That's the college girl mentality I'm talking about.
Yeah, right.
Hang on, your dad.
You're Woody's.
I don't see it. Russell, put it up. I can't find it.
Well, it's in that box up there. You don't see it.
Oh yeah,
put that on screen.
Okay, I see it. Yeah, it's not going on the screen though. But it says Zelensky will be remembered as a Shonda for the Nazis.
Shame. That means shame.
Yeah, Shonda means a shame, and Putin will be celebrated as a savior who slew a global vampire. Well, the Shonda for the Nazis.
I don't know if it'll be that simple.
I don't know if it'll be that simple, but I do think that. And look, I don't know if Zelensky. Well, yeah, I mean, look, Zelensky is Jewish, so I guess the Shonda thing does make a little sense from that.
Is he a practicing Jew?
I don't know. I'm actually not sure about that. Alrighty, everybody. Well, that is our show this evening. Thank you to everybody who signed up as YouTube members. That was really cool of you guys. We'll have to go check out who signed up and do some bookkeeping in our sort of YouTube studio space. Want to thank Tucker and Virtuoso for calling in. Thank you guys very much. Thank you guys for staying up with us and covering all this epic stuff. What's that?
Said watch out for bat soldiers.
The bat soldiers, yeah, like the Wizard of Oz.
Wait, I'm telling you, man. If you're in the neighboring countries, if you see anything in the sky, it's not the New Jersey Devil. It's the winged bat soldiers.
All right, get your little singing bowl out so we can go the fuck to sleep.
Yeah, he needs to go to bed.
Who told you to have kids?
Well, hey, I mean, we've been 3.5 hours anyway.
Yeah.
But but
is the leftist mafia still on?
I don't know. I think the leftist mafia goes to bed at 9:30.
They don't roll like us.
No, I think they have a 9:30 bedtime over at the leftist mafia. I think so.
Oh yeah, right. They got a curfew.
Yeah, curfew.
Not till mafia of them, right?
Yeah, Sabby was on this evening. She was on actually quite late, from what I could tell. So yeah, a lot of action going on in YouTube world. But thank you guys very much for joining us. We will be back here with Norm Finkelstein, provided he does not watch the tail end of this evening's program, in which case we'll improvise. But we will see you guys all back here Sunday night. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. Patreon.com/DueDissidence, DueDissidence.substack.com. If you're not subscribed at Substack, please do. It's free. You can join as a paid member if you want, but you can also join for free. We just dropped a couple of articles recently. We want to start doing some more written material, and so Substack is a great way to stay in touch, not just for the written pieces, but for the audio podcasts and for alerts when we're going to do a live stream. So that's all we got, folks. Thank you very much for being here. You were a great crowd, as always. We will see you back here on Sunday night at 7 p.m. Until then, as always, be safe and be well.
Courage.
Please clap.